Part 232. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2317. What? You were actually assassinated by an unknown enemy in our region. This is not okay. Our dignified Wukai district actually allows guests to be attacked in our own district. It's so goddamn abominable. I want to investigate and get to the bottom of it. When Jia Yan and several domain masters arrived at the fourth region, the commander-in-chief of the region was furious. As we know from previous intelligence, this is a relatively warm and hospitable region, and the entire folk custom is very open-minded and open-minded. For them, it was like a slap in the face when the guests they invited were attacked and assassinated. Therefore, the commander-in-chief of this region was actually plotted against Jia Yan, an instructor who came to their region to teach. To intercept and kill him would be absolutely infuriating. But there's only so much they can do. For a domain lord who assassinates others, let alone them, even if the master family personally takes action, it is not that easy to catch. So the matter gradually came to an end. In this area, Jia Yang still had things to do. Even if he was assassinated and attacked by the enemy, it could not stop the unfolding of this matter. That is why Jia Yan needs to train a Jia Yan army, because this is the reason why he has a very high status in the land of the master's influence. If he stops training just because he was attacked by a sneak attack, then there is no need for him maintain such a high status. Jia Yan knew this very well, so when the commander asked Jia Yan for training, he did not refuse at all, but quickly organized himself and went to the troops in this area. Before long, everything seemed to be back to how it was before. A very enthusiastic soldier from Jia Yan's army was taught by Jia Yan. But what is different from the past is that even though the soldiers have become more enthusiastic and studious, Jia Yan has changed. His teaching became very preoccupied. It's impossible not to be worried. After all, he was attacked by someone unexpectedly, and his injuries are still on his body, so he won't be able to recover quickly. Who else can concentrate on teaching others under such circumstances? Fortunately, the soldiers had already watched videos of Jia Yan's teachings in several previous areas through the internet. They all knew what Jia Yan would say. All they wanted was Jia Yan's training in accordance with their aptitude. It's just a technique, so the progress is still not slow. 3 seniors, what's the response from this area? After the third day of training, Jia Yan returned to his office. While waiting for the domain masters in the area to come to have a class with Jia Yan asked the 3 people who were protecting him. Senior Domain Lord. Creatures such as pangolins have been quite nervous in the past few days, and they are holding their breath. Especially before this, although some domain owners in this area were enthusiastic, some of them were vaguely sarcastic towards them, saying that they were protecting a galaxy-level city. Being unable to protect them makes them uncomfortable. Therefore, the 3 of them have not participated much in the teaching and discussion with Jia Yan in the past 3 days. Instead, they have been guarding Jia Yan, as if to prevent the possible sneak attack from coming again. They promised us that they will keep the itinerary of our unit strictly confidential, and I also got a reply from them. In the future, people in our group will remain anonymous, instead of making a big fanfare along the way like now. Yes, because there has been the first attack case, and it is a domain lord level strongman, so your security measures will surely be improved to several levels in the future. The pangolin creature replied silently. But Jia Yan was not happy at all because of his words. Because these words seemed to have improved the security level, but in fact, anyone with a discerning eye can see that there is no essential change at all. Of course, it is also a good thing for Jia Yan that the higher UPS are willing to improve Jia Yan's security level, but in the end the fundamental problem has not been solved. That is the existence of the territory lord who seems to have some hidden characteristics, and there are no clues. You must know that such a territory lord, even the three senior territory lords can hide their attacks by Jia Yan's side, which is a great deal to Jia Yan. A threat. So Jia Yan knew that there was still a possibility of being plotted against him in the future, and it was extremely high. This is like a sword hanging above his head that threatens his life, which makes Jia Yan reflect on whether his recent behavior has gone too far. No, I have come to this step not because I have gone too far, but because of my needs. I have to visit a large number of domain owners, and I need a lot of ores or special products. If I follow the unknown progress in the past, it will be extremely difficult. Slow, and not much safer than now. Jia Yan said goodbye to several senior territory lords and went to the large office where he talked with the local territory lords. At the same time, he also explained his behavior in his heart. He knew that he was not the kind of person who denied the past. If he had to deny himself as a person or a strong person, then life would be so sad. Even if Jia Yan was like this, he would not be able to achieve his current level of strength. A strong person cannot deny himself too much, as that would make it impossible to grow. Ha ha ha, Jia Yan, are you here? Look, I have prepared special wine for you in our region. It is very good. Even domain lords like us may get drunk after drinking it. You're such a drunken turtle, you're even willing to take out your most precious treasures. I don't have such good things. Look, I have a piece of fruit here. This fruit is an extremely good tribute fruit from my hometown. Ha ha ha, people from the master family come to my house every year to ask for it. You two are so generous, I'm just a little behind. Look, Jia Yan, you want ore, right? I've got some of the best minerals from my territory. I don't know if you need it. When Jia Yan arrived at another large office, he felt that his mind was in chaos for a while. All the creatures in this area are quite enthusiastic, even the domain owners who are currently farming are no exception. Therefore, Jia Yan's experience in the past few days can really be described as miserable. Although the previous area was relatively cold and uncomfortable, such an overly enthusiastic area was another extreme, which made Jia Yan even more miserable. If you don't expect them to be too enthusiastic, wouldn't you just treat yourself calmly? Of course, the territory lord is still the territory lord, and they will not be nice to an outsider for no reason. This must be because Jia Yan is worthy of their treatment, and it also gives Jia Yan enough face, so it is impossible for Jia Yan not to accept this love. Well, this wine tastes really good, and the fruit is pretty good too. I don't think I've ever tasted such delicious fruit before. Senior here, does your mineral actually contain a sense of space in it? Good stuff, I really need to look into it, thanks. Jia Yan thanked the domain lords present one by one and saw their gifts. Of course, in the process, he had to share these things. In other words, now it was like a banquet. Lively scene. After drinking for 3 rounds and having almost eaten, an hour had passed before Jia Yan got down to business in a hurry. That's when he started talking to the domain masters about cultivation issues and his experience in commanding the soldiers of Jia Yan's troops. Although he will be a little regretful tomorrow, he will have to spend an hour greeting and eating and drinking when meeting the domain lords, but the people are so enthusiastic. It is also a novel experience for Jia Yan, especially because people treat him Jia Yan. It's a relatively friendly proof, so he won't stop it. Moreover, the domain owners in this area seem to be wasting their time, but their enthusiastic personalities will also show up in communication. There are certain issues that domain owners in other areas will never talk about, but chatting with them while chatting, these domain masters would speak out if they let something slip, which can be considered a relatively unique gain. Jia Yan, although you didn't say it, we all saw it. You are worried about that sneak attacker, right? Well, you seniors are very discerning. I am indeed a little scared. After all, the enemy is a territory lord, and he is also a territory lord who specializes in sneak attacks. I am afraid that is right. While Jia Yan was communicating, he heard a territory lord speak frankly about the issues he was worried about. The domain master was a monkey-like creature. He raised his finger, smiled at Jia Yan, and said mysteriously, "Let's do this. If you teach me a deeper command method, I will teach you a way to deal with that enemy domain. The Lord's way, I have heard about your previous dangers, and I think I have a way." Jia Yan was suddenly shocked and couldn't help but look at this monkey-like domain lord creature again. Then, he lost a little sense of hope. Because he has become familiar with this territory lord in just 3 or 4 days. That is, if there is any bragging ranking among the domain lords in this enthusiastic area, Jia Yan will definitely vote him as the bragging king. In just a few days, he has listened to him bragging so much that he can't even be ranked. The domain lords around him couldn't take it lightly, and they always revealed his old background. Of course, as Jia Yan has understood in the past, every territory lord existence, or existence with a relatively long lifespan, will have a recurring character. For example, this monkey territory lord, Jia Yan can also imagine that maybe it is possible that he was not such a braggart at other times in his life. But at least now, he is such a creature. He brags too much and Jia Yan doesn't really believe what he says. Haha, senior, if you can help me, of course I will do my best to help you answer the questions about commanding Jia Yan's troops. I just want something more profound, which is almost impossible. The command model I teach everyone is what I am now. I have the most profound knowledge. Jia Yan laughed. If another territory lord spoke like this, he might really be willing to share his more profound theory of yin and yang dao with the other party, but he would not believe this boastful king territory lord. "Oh, Jia Yan, it seems that you don't believe what I said, haha. But I want to tell you, I didn't lie to you this time. If you don't believe it, you may have missed an opportunity to escape. Best chance." When the monkey territory master saw Jia Yan's attitude, he realized that Jia Yan definitely didn't want to believe him, and there was a hint of embarrassment and anger on his expression. Everyone happened to be drinking, and the other territory lords had a good relationship with the monkey territory lord, so they started joking with him. "Ha ha ha, monkey, monkey, you said you started bragging after drinking all day long. Not to mention that Jia Yan doesn't want to believe you in matters of life and death. Even we won't believe you." The commanding creature in this area burst into laughter. His smile was actually to resolve the embarrassment between the two parties. After all, he was a commander-in-chief. Underneath his seemingly careless and hospitable appearance, he must have a scheming mind, otherwise he would not be able to control such a large area. "Damn, you all don't believe me. I am an old monkey. Although I am bragging, how can I brag about this kind of thing? Jia Yan, don't you just have to deal with an assassin-type domain lord who can mess up space talents? Let me tell you, in the early years before I joined the Master Force, I dealt with such a territory lord. Although I cannot tell what force they belong to, I do have ways to deal with them." The monkey domain master was unwilling to believe in the creatures around him, even a junior like Jia Yan. He felt very hurt, so he suddenly revealed his reliance on him. "Huh? Senior, have you actually fought against similar domain lord creatures?" Jia Yan was startled. The other group of territory lords were also slightly startled at this time. You must know that when they first heard that the one who dealt with Jia Yan was actually so weird, he came and went without a trace. When the territory lord, I also felt a headache. I didn't expect that one of my colleagues in the area had dealt with someone similar to the territory lord. For a moment, everyone's interest was aroused by the words of the monkey domain master. "Ha ha ha, how's it going? You all believe me now, Jia Yan, bring me some wine. I don't want any special advice from you. After listening to it, you think I'm right. Just apologize to me, so I don't have to worry about it. One or two of you think that I am bragging all day long. Let me tell you, most of my bragging, most of what I say is the truth. The monkey domain master seemed to be a little drunk, and his words were garbled. Jia Yan, however, remained calm and took the wine barrel from the feet of the territory lord who had contributed the wine. He stepped forward and filled the wine for the monkey territory lord. Then he looked at this monkey territory lord expectantly and wanted to listen to the plan from his mouth to deal with that kind of sneak attack on the domain lord. Ha ha ha, that's right. Look, Jia Yan has such a good attitude. Look at you, two of you. You always say that I'm bragging. Huh, I'm a domain lord. Why am I bragging? It's just bragging. It's not that exaggerated, but I'm not bragging. Text download address. Phone reading. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2318. Senior, you are not bragging. Please tell me how to resolve my current crisis. Thank you very much. When Jia Yan saw that the monkey monster had finished its food, he immediately asked in amusement and sincere anticipation. He understood that if the other party was bragging at the beginning, then he would not continue to speak firmly in the future. Repeating it a second time was equivalent to using his own reputation as a guarantee for a territory lord. Therefore, these words can be big or small. If the other party is still bragging, then Jia Yan can also use the method of requiring mental damage to find a way to get this monkey-like domain master to personally help him get through this level. After all, the territory lord is not just a cabbage on the roadside. If there is one more person, the task of the 3 senior guards of the territory lord will be lighter. If an enemy really comes, this monkey territory lord will definitely be able to play a big role. Of course, even if he followed Jia Yan's script, he would not arrange for the domain lord to be by his side because the two parties were not familiar with each other. He was also afraid that the other party might be a mole. It is impossible to say this right now, because monkey domain has not said the next words yet. God, it tastes good, Jia Yan. Seeing that you are so knowledgeable, I will tell you that when I fought against such a domain lord, I already knew how to deal with them. Although it is impossible to let you, a peak mid-level star in the galaxy is not strong enough to deal with the domain lord, but he can give you some guidance and let the 3 friends who protect you deal with him. Jia Yan took a look and saw that the monkey territory lord in front of him was already a little dizzy from drinking. Although he was not drunk, he already looked a little blurry. For a moment, he didn't know whether the other party was telling the truth, but if he went by what the other party said, he was still willing to talk to the 3 senior territory lords around him about how to defend himself. He didn't understand. The 3 senior territory lords, can you still not understand? At the very least, this is just a matter of toasting. Even if there is no gain, Jia Yan will not lose. Thinking of this, Jia Yan suddenly became more enthusiastic, as if he had assimilated into the people of this region, quite enthusiastic. This day and night was spent in discussion again. However, Jia Yan kept an eye out. Today, when he was communicating with a group of domain masters, he specifically asked more about space matters. The territory lord sneak attacker who attacked last time looked extremely weird. He used it like a subspace, but it didn't look like a subspace. To Jia Yan, it was an existence he had never encountered before, so he was in urgent need of someone like him. Knowledge. Fortunately, among the territory lords present, even though most of them didn't understand that kind of ability, except for the monkey territory lord, there were a few others who had a rough idea and shared their opinions. I think that guy's ability is not his racial talent, but a way of cultivation. In our North Star, it is all-encompassing. There are all kinds of cultivation methods. For example, your Jia Yan's Yin and Yang Dao, here there are unique cultivation techniques in the North Star, but it does not mean that there will not be any cultivation path similar to your Yin and Yang Dao in the North Star. Maybe there are similar paths that have been carried forward for a long time in places far away from the North Star. So the territory lord you want to deal with may be a person with unique cultivation skills. You can start from this aspect and think of ways to deal with him. Yes, I also think that the mysterious person is not a gifted being. His fighting method is like a subspace or a gravitational wave space. It would be too much to say that it is a talent of a certain race. Generally speaking, except for races that are born to live in these two dimensions and have similar talents, it is simply impossible for other beings to obtain abilities between the two. From a biological point of view, if a race lives in the subspace, it will be difficult to enter the gravitational wave space to survive normally. At least the race will not develop in this way, because it is not necessary. Just like you, Jia Yan, you are talented in the subspace. I think you can also enter the gravitational wave system, but you won't spend too much energy on gravitational waves anymore, right? This is the reason. We all agree that the other party should be some kind of cultivation method. You can search online and see where there is such a technique. There must be a domain master there. Cultivation, this kind of cultivation method will not be too borrowed and unknown, so that you can know how to deal with it. After hearing the words of several domain masters, Jia Yan felt like he was enlightened, and he clarified his thoughts in an instant. They are right. You can search online later. If the domain lord is not gifted with spatial abilities, then it should be the skills of cultivation. And the skills that can make the domain lord practice are definitely not. It will be a simple existence, and there will be some news on the internet. Of course, it is a fool's dream to search the entire North Star with a network that controls the entire territory. Jia Yan just wants to search through nearby networks. If that doesn't work, he will find a way to connect to something further away. Search the internet everywhere. If it doesn't work, try other methods. Of course, in addition to this, he worked even harder on cultivation. After listening to the thoughts of the domain lord in this enthusiastic area, he felt that he had gained a lot. It's normal. Compared to the cold attitude of everyone in the previous area, in a warm place, people are always willing to pay more, otherwise how can they brag? So Jia Yan really got a lot of advice and gains from these domain masters. Okay, Jia Yan, today's discussion is over. You can go back and lead the team. A group of domain owners, after discussing with Jia Yan for a long time, let Jia Yan leave. But before leaving, the commander-in-chief of this enthusiastic area said something to Jia Yan. Jia Yan, I have established a line with the master family. They came with an order, saying that since you have been worried about by an unknown strong man, then this time, you will complete the troop training 5 days early, and then quietly leave this region. We will definitely hide the information from you, and the enemy will definitely not be able to catch up with you. Okay, I understand, thank you, senior. After Jia Yan heard this, his heart moved slightly and he nodded gratefully. This conversation was all said in the private transmission method of brainwave power, so other domain owners did not hear it. It can be seen that even all the domain owners may not know the current plan. And Jia Yan thought about it. Jia Yan's troops in this large area have already learned a lot, and it is not impossible to compress the time and train them roughly within 10 days, so this matter, it may be that the higher UPS of the controlling force and the commander of this region have already thought about it. Forget it, since they are so concerned about my safety, I will go all out and let this unit train less, which will not make other units any weaker. Jia Yan is a reciprocal person. Therefore, in the following training process, Jia Yan not only did not become impatient because of a powerful enemy, but instead trained his troops harder and more efficiently. The territory lords in this region seem to be laughing and joking every day, but on these nights, they are more attentive to Jia Yan's teachings. Some of them seem to be eager to accept Jia Yan as their disciples. Give everything to each other. But Jia Yan doesn't need to be their disciple, because he uses yin and yang Tao, and he can't learn anything by being someone else's disciple. Even so, he learned a lot unexpectedly in these days, at least more than the previous district that had a cold attitude. The 10 days are coming soon. Is it time? Seniors, Jia Yan has been taught by you for so many days. Thank you for your education. Ha ha ha, isn't it only 10 days? There are still 5 days left. It's not too late to say such sour words when the time comes. That's right, Jia Yan, I feel that you are really destined to me. Otherwise, in the future, after you have taught these regional troops and come back here to be my apprentice, maybe I will make you the domain lord. Bah, you old turtle, are you here to snatch the apprentice I want? Jia Yan, don't listen to him. He became the domain lord by himself. It took 2,000 years. If he hadn't been of a long-lived race, he wouldn't have been able to do it. You have to push yourself to death. If you can't follow him, come with me. Haha, you guys, Jia Yan hasn't even left yet, and you're starting to snatch apprentices. After the territory lord's instruction on the 10th day, Jia Yan discovered that among these territory lords, except for the commander-in-chief who knew about it, others still didn't know that he was about to leave. It seems to be to hide information. Jia Yan did not say anything in public that he was about to leave, because if he said it, it would be leaking information, so he calmly said some final words to several domain masters, which were regarded as a vague farewell. Afterwards, Jia Yan and several others resigned. But today, when he arrived at the training ground, he asked a group of soldiers from Jia Yan's army to conduct a small-scale combat drill with each other, and then spoke with sincerity. After a while, under the gaze and observation of a group of domain lords, Jia Yan asked the soldiers to start reflecting on themselves, but he retreated to the side under the pretext of resting. Your Excellency Jia Yan, if there is an accident, it is most likely when we leave the great region soon, so I will go with you for a while. A territory lord following the commander territory lord was waiting for Jia Yan for a long time at the side of the training ground. Okay, let's go. I'm just a little embarrassed for hiding it from everyone. I'll apologize to them all next time. Your Excellency Jia Yan, you don't have to be like this. I know you are an emotional person, but this is a matter of your life. I think they will understand. The territory lord's expression was very cold. During the 10 days of guidance, Jia Yan found that such a territory lord was relatively reticent and very different from the enthusiasm of others. It is said that he was also responsible for this large area and was not so talkative. The presence of clean work. Well, let's go. Jia Yan did not doubt this territory lord, because at this level, it was extremely difficult to bribe him, not to mention that the other party had been working in this region for a long time. He did not believe that the enemy had the ability to make such a territory lord work for them. The two figures gradually left everyone's sight, as if they were exchanging some questions. Most of the domain lords were also watching the training of the soldiers of Jia Yan's army, and the fierce exchanges they had just seen. During the drill, it was said that Jia Yan's troops actually practiced like this in 10 days, which made them very surprised. Some people also saw Jia Yan leaving with the territory lord next to the commander, but no one had any unique ideas. After all, similar things happened often. Jia Yan always left because he wanted to see the equipment. I'll be right back in a moment. What they don't know is that Jia Yan has been doing this these days just to create a habit for others. This time he went to check out the equipment and would not come back. Jia Yan, you're here. Not long after Jia Yan left, he saw a small army team outside the area barracks. Here, the original team of Jia Yan's troops he led, which were also elites formed from the ice and snow region and the grassland troops, were already waiting here. Of course, there were also the 3 territorial lords to protect them. With such a group of people, Jia Yan felt extremely safe. At least the combat effectiveness of the 3 territory lords is something he truly trusts, And his Jia troops are not bad either, especially the 3 galaxy-level ones. During his many journeys, he has had troops with these 3 in every region. The Zing level continues to improve the joint tactics. In Jia view, the current combat effectiveness must have improved again, but he just doesn't know if it is enough to deal with ordinary domain lords. Well, we have to help 3 more seniors. This senior will follow us for a while. Jia pointed at the territory lord next to the commander behind him. Well, this brother, we have known each other for a long time, but next we will be responsible for Jia main defense. You get to the car behind, what do you think? The pangolin creature said this to the strange territory lord. Ken. The other party understood that this was not a sign of distrust in him, but that in this case, it was necessary to protect a person. He automatically boarded an ordinary flying car. That's right, in order to let fewer people know their whereabouts, Jia and the others stopped driving their chariots and replaced them with a batch of vehicles that looked the same as civilian vehicles. Several of them are large commercial vehicles. In fact, the interiors are modified large tanks. They are more expensive than the tanks that Jia and the others originally drove to this area. They can be regarded as replacing shotguns with cannons. Let's go. After we leave this time, every time we go to a large area, they will prepare a similar car body and cover for us. This is the first time. I think they will be more skilled in the future, and our safety will be higher. Okay. Jia, guarded by the 3 domain masters, boarded a large vehicle that was used as a bus in this northern giant. However, it looks like a bus on the outside, but it's different inside. It's a huge fighting space with a lot of equipment and room for people to live in it. This kind of bus will naturally not be an Earth bus, but a long-distance flying bus that can cross 2 major areas. It is 100 meters long and 10 meters wide. It cuts out a lot of space, like it's a flying house with many rooms. Text download address. Phone reading. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2319. Then what identity will the attacker have? When will he attack? In the ordinary-looking bus, Jia, under disguise, silently looked out the window at the blue sky and white clouds. They had been on their journey for a little while, and there was no longer a scene of the warm regional capital outside the window. It was completely green water and green mountains, very beautiful. I seem to have missed some key issues. The existence of the sneak attack only appeared once, but it troubled my thinking again and again, and made me quickly leave the capital of the region. I wonder if leaving anonymously this time will cause trouble. Jia was in his room, silently looking at the outside world, and then fell into cultivation again. Yes, he actually understood from the beginning that no matter how the external situation develops, no matter how serious the situation becomes, or even whether there is anyone around him to protect him, in fact, his original intention and what he wants to do have always been. It hasn't changed. That is becoming stronger. If he is strong enough, then the current crisis will be nothing. That's right, as long as I am a territory lord and another territory lord comes to chase me, who else should I be afraid of besides the existence of an intermediate territory lord or even a stronger one? And the average intermediate territory lord is every big. The leaders of the forces are unlikely to be interested in me, so if I reach the domain lord level, I will definitely be much safer than now. Jia straightened out his train of thought, or in other words, he had always understood this train of thought. Just because he was training troops and communicating with a group of domain lords, his own thoughts became covered with dust. But now, the road is straightened out again. If it is strong enough, is the current problem a problem again? Not at all. It seems that recently I have been training troops and communicating with groups of territory lords, which has affected my own thinking. It seems to be superficial. In this way, I need to carefully integrate my thoughts. To put it into perspective, don't think so much about the scenery. You may not know how many people exist. It is because such foreign objects that look like scenery affect their mentality that they are unable to be promoted to the territory lord. And they are unable to be promoted to the territory lord. No matter how prosperous you are, it is only temporary, and even after your advantages no longer exist, you will be eliminated. Jia Yan thought about all this, and then silently calmed down his impatience, and began to internally think about the several major areas before and after, as well as the grassland battlefield, plus so many experiences on the road in the ice and snow area, as well as the earnest teachings of the domain masters. All running through my mind. The memory of galaxy-level creatures is very terrifying. Not long ago, Jia Yan could clearly recall even the expressions, demeanor, and some small movements of so many domain masters at that time. He was summarizing what so many domain owners said to him, and then began to summarize the truth of what they said, the mentality of each person when they spoke, and what they wanted to express to Jia Yan. The path of the strong cannot be imitated. Even when communicating with each other, there are actually many times when domain masters are unable to reveal their insights and ideas during cultivation to others. This is just like among human beings. Although everyone knows what it feels like to raise a hand, can you explain how to raise your hand by describing it in words? How does the brain give instructions to the hands, and what does it feel like? This is why the concept of the strong is sometimes difficult to teach to others. Everyone can only teach it as much as possible, but whether they can understand it can only depend on the other person's individual understanding and diligence. And this is also the reason why Jia Yan wants to consult so many domain owners. He is not the kind of person who can understand other people's thoughts, nor can he easily understand what the domain lords mean by their expressions. However, he can use big data and consult a large number of domain lords to enhance his understanding of knowledge. Possibility. Of course, only God knows whether what was comprehended in that way was what the territory lord wanted to express at that time. The process of trial and error is also an extremely long process. And all of this requires Jia Yan to use time and judgment to make a decision, and then he can take the next difficult step on the road to becoming a territory lord. This is the difficulty of the road to become a domain master, and the time for promotion is sometimes the most important and luckiest step to take risks amidst countless trials and errors. This is why, what Jia Yan heard, almost none of those territory lords succeeded in promotion because they deliberately tried to be promoted, because each of them may have tried countless times, but the result was often that they became in line with the requirements for promotion in some inexplicable way. Conditions, it becomes a successful promotion. I have roughly summarized the ideas of so many domain masters. It seems that my chances are relatively good, but in fact it is still a mess. If nothing unexpected happens, more samples and more time will be needed. Jia Yan thought about it for a long time. Although he could not say that he had gained nothing, he felt even more confused about the path to promotion. Having seen a lot of territory lords, I thought that territory lords were very simple, but when I actually thought about promotion, I realized that it was not that simple at all. If you recall carefully, you will know that in each large area that passes through, there seem to be many territory lords, but there are only a dozen or 20, and even if there are private ones, there may not be many. But what about the galaxy-level ones, or even the ones stuck at the peak of intergalaxy level? Jia Yan thought about it. He didn't know how many he saw in the regional government and in the army alone. In other words, compared to the territory lord, the beings stuck at the galaxy level where there are too many, so many people cannot be promoted successfully, which is enough to express how difficult it is to be promoted successfully to the level of domain lord. Alas, there is still a long way to go. When Jia Yan was inside the chariot that protected his appearance, he was comprehending his promotion and making some adjustments to his recent cultivation. Inside that enthusiastic area. Huh? I didn't ask that guy to take care of Jia Yan before he left. I had other things to do. Did he really say that he was going to take care of Jia Yan before he left? That's not good. The commander-in-chief of the enthusiastic region received the message from his subordinates and learned that his capable subordinate, who had always been very cold-looking, actually said that he was going to send off Jia Yan. He was slightly startled at first, and then his expression changed. Great changes. Because he didn't give the order, but this guy went to escort Jia Yan without permission, which meant that there must be a ghost. At this moment, why did he have a ghost? There is only one reason to explain. Damn it, hurry up and send a message to Jia Yan. Besides, I'll rush there myself, but I don't know if I can make it in time. The leader of the region, the territory lord, was extremely anxious at this time. He quickly put down a lot of work and flew away towards the direction where Jia Yan and the others left, using all his strength. When the domain lord discovered that something was wrong. On Jia Yan's side, inside the large cover-like chariot he was riding in, a twisted figure slowly appeared in the aisle of the bus. His figure was vague, wandering like a ghost step by step in the passage of the car body, as if he was cruising. But when he came to a certain place, he seemed to have detected the target person. Suddenly, under the distorted and blurry figure, a humanized smiling face appeared, and it was still twisted and very scary. Then, he aimed at the door of a room in the passage he walked to, and a foot-like structure was raised. Buzz. Boom. With a loud bang, the door was suddenly destroyed from the outside. A large number of debris flew into the room. With the destruction of the door, the figure also rushed into the room like flying. Ha ha. The blurry figure raised its feet and suddenly hit everything in the room with force, seeming to be excited about the success of its mission. But soon, he stopped. Because under his foot attack, there was no giant mosquito as expected. Puff. At this moment, there was a slight movement in the entire bus. Under the horror of this vague creature, the bus suddenly erupted with an earth-shattering explosion. Boom. Inside the bus, it was as if a large amount of explosive material had been planted in advance, and it was detonated at this time, causing an earth-shaking explosion. The bus soon turned into a ball of fire, flying into a large number of debris. Outside this bus, several figures quickly flew out from other buses at the rear, silently looking at the bus that turned into a sea of flames. Your Excellency, we all know that such a small explosion is impossible to withstand you. Come out. The pangolin creature is in the center of these figures. As the strongest domain master, he does his duty. When facing such a powerful enemy, he will definitely not let others be in front. Among all the figures, there was Jia Yan's figure, but he was silent. At the back of the crowd, even during the car battle, there were several other Galaxy-class members of Jia Yan's team rushing to Jia Yan's side, preparing to form a Jia Yan team with him to deal with the enemy in front of him. Buzz. Among the fragments of the bus and chariot that exploded into a ball of flames, there was a vague shadow that quickly flew out of the flames. Then, the figure condensed into a vague monster figure. It was the guy who attacked Jia Yan that day. The entire scene was suddenly filled with an atmosphere of solemnity and danger. Sure enough, it didn't hurt him at all. Such an explosion would make the average domain lord feel disgraced, but he didn't even get hurt at all. It's very troublesome. The three domain lords who were defending Jia Yan all had sinister expressions on their faces at this moment. You are very good, you actually know it's me. The twisted figure gradually transformed into a figure, and everyone saw its true face clearly. It was the cold-faced Territory Lord creature who was first said to be ordered by the Commander Territory Lord to escort Jia Yan out of this area. It's not that we know you, but we are very cautious. When we went out, we specifically asked another territory lord if he had assigned you the task of protecting us. Although he also said he didn't know, we just asked you with a sense of vigilance. If you don't have second thoughts anyway, we won't lose anything, it's just some explosives. That's right, the explosives hidden in the bus were Jia Yan's Yin Yang Dao explosives, and they were abundant. The only pity was that they didn't cause much damage to the sky. Jia Yan, I also know that this strategy was taught to you by the monkey creature, haha. I was originally ordered to get rid of him. It's a pity that over the years, I didn't find an opportunity, but was told to get rid of him. It seems that in the end, your mission was ruined by that guy. This domain master creature has re-entered a vague state. This is probably his original appearance. As for the state when he appears, it is probably just his temporary appearance. Senior Monkey did give me a lot of inspiration, but more importantly, he taught me to investigate you. You are the strongest killer organization among the major forces nearby. After I read your information, I can say that it is scary. A jump. Jia Yan looked at the twisted figure silently and told the other parties information. Yes, he had actually known for a long time which organization the creature that attacked him would be. He heard what the monkey creature said to him back then, and more importantly, when no one else while present, the monkey territory master had a conversation with Jia Yan, especially giving Jia Yan an underground website address. Then, Jia Yan saw more information about the kind of thing in front of him from that address. Information and data on biological organizations. You won't know it until you see it, but you will be shocked when you see it. Only then did he realize that this organization is the most powerful among the many forces nearby, and the most powerful killer organization that causes headaches to all forces. The cases they have committed can be said to cause every force nearby to suffer. They all suffered from severe headaches, and some even succeeded in assassinating the leaders of the forces. The most sensational case was that hundreds of years ago, they were tasked by a wealthy man to assassinate the owner of the force next door. He was also a peak junior domain lord and was about to reach the intermediate level of domain lord. And that time the attack was successful, made this force famous, and all the force leaders felt that they were a threat. All forces worked together, and after a major overhaul, this force became more hidden. However, I did not expect that after such a long time, they were still active, and they also took over the task of assassinating Jia Yan. What about the monkey? Haha, it's a pity that I couldn't kill him, but do you think that after forcing me out, I won't be able to do anything to you? The creature in the mist suddenly blurred in silence, and then there was a breath, like lightning, suddenly moving towards Jia Yan, who was under heavy protection. Careful! Bang! Among all the beings present, the pangolin creature may be the strongest among the friendly forces. His reaction was not unpleasant. He immediately threw out his tail and the hard tail shell hit an invisible force. The object was actually stiff and collided with the enemy's incoming attack. Buzz. Text download address. Phone reading. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2320. Buzz. I saw a vague figure, staggering backwards and flying away. The expression on his face became very surprised. Sir, guess what? Now that we have obtained information about you from the old monkey, will we ask him how to deal with you? Especially on seeing through your tracks, will he tell us? Haha, in fact, that old monkey looks crazy, but he is actually as careful as hair. This. At this moment, the vague figure finally looked a little ugly. His figure is the biggest reliance of his assassin organization, and it is also their representative appearance. In the past, when they had no means to deal with them, they could say that they used this figure to gain a big advantage. They assassinated the junior domain lord before. When he was the master of power at the peak, this figure played the greatest role. It was only after they were targeted by a group of forces in the later period, and their cultivation methods were thoroughly studied, that many forces had cracking methods against them, that their figure gradually lost such a big advantage. But what I didn't expect was that, against such a group of beings who were not at the center of the master's power, they would actually be able to decipher his own skills. This is troublesome. Suddenly being shaken out of the subspace and gravitational wave space, the vague territory lord felt whether he was being targeted. But what made him even more depressed was yet to come. Ha ha ha, you want to scold me, old monkey? Come on, I'm here, feel free to scold me. Behind this blurry figure, inside the previous flame, there was a monkey creature that turned into a fire monkey and suddenly struck out. Its attack was very unexpected. The vague domain lord enemy in the confrontation with Jia Yan and the others did not notice his attack at all. In an instant, he was hit in the back by the fire monkey's punch. Puff. This. After suffering repeated heavy blows, this vague figure, no matter how calm and confident he was, became very uncomfortable at this moment, and even more frightened. Everyone, please do something quickly. I know the killer organization behind this guy. Even if I catch him, I won't be able to reveal any information about their organization. I'll kill him. The monkey domain lord was covered in flames, and his blurry figure seemed to be dumbfounded. So that's it, it's you, fire monkey. Back then, our killer organization killed the guy we hadn't killed for 10 years. I didn't expect you to be by my side all these years, and I have been investigating your existence, ha 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 ha. That blurry figure almost felt like he was out of breath and vomiting blood. It's good to know it's me. In fact, I've known it's you a long time ago. How can there be such a cold person in the enthusiasm zone? Humph, but even if you know my true identity now, you can't possibly tip off the news. I've long since cutting off communication in this area. It's not difficult for me to deal with guys like you who hide your head and show your tail, so you're dead. The monkey, who was full of fire, changed his nagging feeling when he met Jia Yan and the others. He immediately charged forward. Even if the blurry figure with twisted figure dodged, it was impossible to escape him. Fist. The other 3 territory lords guarding Jia Yan looked at each other at the same moment, leaving the black bear creature to protect Jia Yan, and then the others rushed out and besieged the twisted figure. Senior, I have nothing to do here. You can also join in besieging the enemy. Jia Yan said calmly behind the black bear creature. Okay, then be careful. The black bear creature was making an angry sound, and it didn't seem like there was much going on. Headlong into the battlefield. However, it is not that he does not have the presence of Chinfu, and he also sees that there should be no strong person hiding in the surrounding environment, otherwise he must be protecting Jia Yan. Jia Yan was at the rear, silently watching the battlefield. The twisted visitor, under the siege of the 4 domain owners, was like a helpless chicken. He was hit by this domain owner and then attacked by another owner, even if he wanted to use his own skills to escape. Will be hit back by creatures like flaming monkeys. He has no wings to fly. Faced with such a rare battle between domain lords, Jia Yan and all the members of Jia Yan's troops here were fascinated to watch. You know, ordinary creatures can hardly even see the territory lord once in their lifetime, let alone the territory lord war unfolding in front of their eyes. And the battle between the domain lords is indeed no small matter. Jia Yan saw it with his own eyes. The pangolin creature who said to himself that the tail should sweep, not knock, used his tail to knock the fuzzy creature's entire body towards the ground. He also saw that the monkey creature who was chatting and laughing with him shot out flames with one punch, and punched the fuzzy creature wandering in the 2 spaces so that it flew out of both spaces, and then it was all on fire, and returned not in the sandwich between subspace and gravitational wave space. Die to me. Suddenly, the black bear creature joined the battlefield and became the almost final outcome of this battle. He scratched it with a claw, scratching the fuzzy creature in the flame until it was dripping with blood, and flew it upside down towards Jia Yan. This guy's combat power has become very weak after others knew about his skill weaknesses. As expected, he is a killer organization that is hated by many forces. Even his own specialties have been studied so thoroughly that he has become so weak. Jia Yan looked at the flying domain lord creature. At this moment, not only did he not feel the slightest bit lucky, he even had a thought in his heart that he could not release all the yin and yang dao randomly. At least before yin-yang dao has formed a complex theory and he has enriched his various combat abilities, if he had discovered yin-yang dao, he might have had the same fate. After being thoroughly studied, his combat effectiveness would be greatly reduced. Jia Yan? Die. After the enemy of the territory lord who was on fire discovered that he was actually struck by a black bear creature, where Jia Yan was, a layer of determination surged in his eyes. Since he has thrown himself into a trap and cannot escape, he should risk his life and complete his mission. Team Jia Yan, fight with me as the leader. At this moment, Jia Yan did not retreat, nor did he seek shelter from other domain lords. Instead, he suddenly used his brainwave power and said calmly to all the galaxy-level beings of Jia Yan's team around him. Buzz. At this moment, the entire Jia Yan team suddenly surged with some kind of joint energy that they had already mastered. This is the energy of yin and yang dao, and compared to the battle on the grassland, this joint energy has become slightly greater. In other words, Jia Yan's team is actually stronger than before. This is also the reason why Jia Yan does not retreat. Joint tactics? Let me verify for myself how effective your joint tactics are. The vague creature sneered slightly, and used all its power, that is, all the remaining domain lord level energy under the combined attacks of the domain lords, in this attack. Even if it's a little weaker than when he was completely victorious, it's not much different. No, let's go there. Behind him, the expressions of several major domain lords changed drastically. They were the ones protecting Jia Yan. They didn't expect that this enemy would find such an opportunity. If Jia Yan was killed by his last blow, then this time, even if they could kill the domain lord, they would definitely be able to kill him. A mortal sin. It is a pity that the enemy territory lord who rushed towards Jia Yan with the force of being bombarded and took advantage of the first mover advantage has already surpassed them by too much speed and it is impossible to catch up. So this group of domain masters could only watch helplessly as this enemy rushed in front of Jia Yan. Jia Yan's team also formed a formation at an unprecedented speed. Obviously, Jia Yan is preparing to use his Jia Yan team to deal with the approaching enemy of the domain lord. He didn't choose to retreat. The four domain masters behind him were all startled for a moment, and then they flew silently while carefully watching the performance of Jia Yan's team. Especially the monkey creature in the flames. He had always heard about the power of yin and yang dao's joint warfare. He had personally understood and witnessed the terrifying aspects of joint warfare when Jia Yan was training troops. But the problem is that this tactic has never shown its power before his eyes, so he still has some doubts about it. At the moment, Jia Yan personally led his Jia Yan team to demonstrate the yin and yang dao joint combat method in front of him. For him, it was also a kind of insight. Kill. When Jia Yan asked his three galaxy-level subordinates to take a position with him, he felt that in an instant, three forces opposite to him converged into his body from behind, and he felt an unprecedented sense of power. His feet suddenly released the power of positive and negative, and coupled with his own positive and negative physique, it was as if the whole world changed into a certain shape, causing his feet to stab fiercely. The foot that approached the enemy was directly bombarded in one place, and then a huge shockwave resounded from the location where the two sides were fighting. The enemy territory lord who was fighting against Jia Yan only felt a force that was no weaker than the average territory lord. It exploded at Jia Yan's feet, making his whole body feel like it was being eaten by lightning, and he felt unbelievable. Although his current strength has become very weak, the attack he used to gather the last energy of his body can be said to be weaker than the full blow he used when he was completely victorious, but it is not much different. And this kind of real domain lord energy was really blocked by Jia Yan's team headed by Jia Yan? Jia Yan's team, no. I should say joint tactics, really lived up to its reputation. If you can block the first blow, what about the next one? Go to hell. The enemy territory lord had gone crazy. He believed that he could not escape, so he followed the obsession of a killer and suddenly attacked the target Jia Yan. If he could kill him, then even if he died, it would be honorable. Die. Don't even think about it. When Jia Yan was about to call on the energy of the 3 galactic-level people behind him again, asking them to help him withstand another attack, and even wanted to use the strongest strength of this team, try, is it possible? When you can perform a killing an enemy beyond a level. The fastest friendly territory lord behind him was killed brazenly. That is the pangolin. Not only can its head burrow through the soil, but when it flies in the air, it seems to have no resistance and its speed is faint, a little faster than other domain masters. He swept his tail directly and stood in front of Jia Yan, stopping the enemy's territory lord who had long since exhausted his energy. Next, the enemy territory lord seemed to have no chance of a comeback. He struck one blow after another. Under the combined attacks of the 4 territory lords, he gradually lost the power to resist. Don't try to capture me alive. Not long after, Jia Yan only heard a very sad roar, and then the domain lord actually detonated himself. Under the loud noise, the 4 domain lords were all slightly injured, and each of them involuntarily retreated a lot. Although Jia Yan was far away, he was also affected by the explosion. Fortunately, he was surrounded by members of Jia Yan's team. At this moment, they used their combined defensive energy to block the domain lord's self-destruction. It's over. That's right, the 4 territory lords, plus the existence of Jia Yan's team, are so embarrassed to kill an assassin who is not good at frontal combat. This shows that it is really difficult for the territory lords to fight. Several major domain lords also felt very tired. Thank you, Senior. Jia Yan immediately flew to the monkey territory lord, who was still covered in flames, and gave him a big salute. You don't need to thank me. This killer force and I are actually incompatible with each other. When I said this to you that day, I was secretly watching the surroundings and saw the change in this guy's expression. In order to make a difference with them. You just made a move to end me, so you had the right opportunity. And you also made me see the horror of joining forces, which increased my knowledge, and you didn't owe me anything. The monkey domain master said calmly, and at the same time, he suddenly suppressed the flames on his body and turned into the ordinary monkey. Anyway, I still want to thank you, Senior, and if there is an opportunity in the future, I will repay your kindness. Jia Yan shook his head. As a person with a clear sense of grudges, he would naturally not receive favors from others in vain. In fact, this monkey territory lord not only helped Jia Yan in this battle, but also if he revealed the skills of the killer force and guided Jia Yan to go to the dark web to inquire about the inside story of the killer organization, this favor can be owed. It's a bit big. After a few waffling words of thanks, Jia Yan took advantage of the exchange between the domain masters and flew down to the place where the vague creature died just now. Puff. Jia Yan picked up a piece of meat, and then he felt about his surroundings, his expression slightly moved. Because from the energy of the opponent's death, he analyzed the power of subspace, and this was the direction he was researching. I don't know where this killer organization's skills came from, who its creator is, and how much mastery of subspace and gravitational wave systems it takes to study these things. Text download address. Phone reading. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2321. Jia Yan was a little surprised, but he was not too shocked. Instead, he seized the time and quickly sorted out the enemy's relics. In addition to certain remains that may be useful to Jia Yan, he also collected pieces of the enemy's belongings. Although they were completely destroyed, they are also rare and good things for Jia Yan. Maybe there will be some inspiration in the direction of cultivation that is beneficial to you. Jia Yan, we have to leave quickly. There's a big battle here. God knows if the enemy has spies who will follow us. It's better that our whereabouts are not known to anyone as much as possible. Okay, then, senior old monkey, let's go. If you need my help in any way next time, please just ask. Jia Yan will be on call. Well, go ahead, and don't forget what you said. Whoosh. The room in the bus room where Jia Yan was located was brightly lit. The previous one turned into a ball of flame, and the one he was in now was naturally not the previous one, but another camouflage chariot like the largest bus in the entire fleet. Inside the chariot, Jia Yan kept thinking about the gains from the previous battle. First of all, the battle between several territory lords gave him a lot of shock and gain, and the blow he fought with the dead territory lord contained a lot of pheromones. After thinking about it, he can understand there are many things that are of benefit to you. But these are not the main things Jia Yan studies. Puff. This is part of the corpse of the octopus-like domain lord from the last grassland battle. Puff. This is the corpse of the killer domain master disguised in the enthusiasm region this time. The corpses of the former territory lord and the latter territory lord were gathered together. Jia Yan silently observed and studied the corpses of the two territory lords. For him, having the corpses of two great domain lords in his hands was something he had never dared to think about before. But now, not only did he have the corpse of a territory lord for him to study, he even had the corpse of another territory lord who was good at killing and whose skills were slightly similar to his. This is an extremely luxurious thing for a strong man at the top of the middle level of the galaxy. After all, the two corpses in front of him were not ordinary cats and dogs on the roadside, but the corpses of two domain lords, each of whom could easily kill Jia Yan in their prime state. In the past few days, I have used the corpse of the first domain lord creature to absorb and practice as much as possible. My practice speed every day can be said to be 1,000 miles a day, even if I am not too far away from the domain lord's energy requirement level. It can even be said that even if I get promoted immediately, it is not impossible. But, there is always something missing. And the corpses of this second domain lord have become very few after their self-destruction. It is impossible for me to absorb them. At most, they can only be used for my research. Of course, I feel that I don't need to absorb anything from him. It's okay to absorb enough of it, but even if it doesn't, it would be good for me to observe the skills of subspace and gravitational wave systems. Jia Yan was still very curious about the body of the territory lord in his hands. The corpses of the two domain lords in the room were not as weird as imagined, and the corpses did not look like corpses, but resembled certain minerals. It could even be said that they were much harder than minerals. After all, they are part of the body of the territory lord, and ordinary minerals cannot be compared. In the hands of other creatures, such as some star-level creatures, it would be impossible to even destroy the body of the domain lord. At the very least, it takes a combat-type star-level existence to destroy the body of a territory lord. This shows how terrifying the existence of a territory lord is. Even after death, it takes a strong person to damage their body. Of course, Jia Yan is a galaxy level, and is still close to the intermediate galaxy peak creature of the territory lord. This is just the corpse of the territory lord, so naturally it is not something that is impossible to destroy. He first picked up a piece of the corpse of the first domain lord. He saw that the corpse was as warm as jade. Between Jia Yan's feet, it quickly turned into a liquid-like object and was covered by it. Jia Yan slowly absorbed it with his mouth parts. Relatively speaking, Jia Yan has been studying the body of the first domain lord for many days, so naturally he does not need to study him all the time. So absorb it directly. Buzz. Next, Jia Yan used the brainwave power to guide a part of the body of the killer domain master who was proficient in subspace and gravitational wave space, and flew it in front of him. He tried to use his subspace talent to communicate with the corpse, but the air in the air became distorted. Groan. Then the body parts were swallowed into the subspace. Well, it seems that using this corpse to communicate with the subspace is a little faster than communicating by myself, but it's not as fast as the public process, so it's useless. Jia Yan first determined one thing, that is, the opponent's subspace ability does not come from his own talent, because if the talent exists, then his physical body will more or less have certain subspace fluctuations, or in other words, this corpse will become a treasure opened in the subspace. But at least under Jia Yan's operational observation, there was no such thing. This shows that the opponent's body does not have much connection with the subspace. It also means that the killer domain master does not have subspace talent. Nowadays, he has a certain ability to open the subspace form, because he has opened the subspace too many times, so his body naturally has a trace of subspace characteristics. Although it does not have the characteristic of opening the subspace, and it does not allow me to open the subspace faster, this is what I expected. What I want to look at now is to use this corpse to estimate his skills, or in other words, is how to open the subspace and how to have the gravitational wave system. Even if I can't use it, it must be good for my subspace talent and the increase of my future strength. Jia Yan was very calm and composed, silently analyzing the body. Not long after, the sky gradually changed from the original darkness to daylight again. During this whole process, there was no attack from the outside world, and I don't know whether the organization behind the Domain Lord Killer didn't know that the killer had died, or whether they were not prepared to launch a second attack even if they knew about it. Attack. Jia Yan would rather believe that this is the first possibility, because in this case, they will be freed from the observation of this organization. Although this kind of observation will return to the other party's observation in the next large area, it at least shows that their approach is effective, and it also shows that the other party is not yet able to control the influence of the opponent. Grasp the whereabouts of any target. If this is the case, then Jia Yan's safety is still guaranteed in the future. Jia Yan, are you awake from your research? Well, thank you seniors for your protection. I'm really sorry that I entered the cultivation state alone but didn't let you practice properly. Ha ha ha, this is nothing. We have all lived for thousands of years. Not to mention such a short period of time now. If Shanfan works harder, I'm afraid he will already be an intermediate territory lord. No, Black Bear, what you said is a bit bragging. I can guarantee that even if you practice hard, you still can't reach the intermediate level of Domain Lord. You guy, why don't you give me some face and make me look like a senior in front of Jia Yan? After the sky got brighter, Jia Yan stopped his practice and thinking, went outside the room, and greeted several senior territory lords. You know, for Jia Yan, these three domain lords are almost equivalent to the protectors of fate. In fact, Jia Yan rarely has such a feeling in his whole life. Being protected by others, and slowly becoming more and more trusting them was a first for Jia Yan. However, Jia Yan doesn't like this feeling very much, because it makes him feel that his destiny is controlled by others. What he has been doing has been done by others, and the weak one is still himself. This is very depressing. Of course, this matter is a matter of his own mentality and has nothing to do with the three senior territory lords. He has never thought about treating the three territory lords any less enthusiastically, so he is still quite respectful to the three territory lords at the moment. Okay, Jia Yan, if you have any questions, feel free to ask us. Yes, Jia Yan, that's it. We will all answer your questions. It always feels weird. Why did I initially just want to join forces with Yin Yang Dao who asked you about it, but now I have to risk my life to protect you. In the morning, Jia Yan had some exchanges with the three domain masters, especially Jia Yan, who took the three of them and started analyzing and summarizing their cultivation questions, even though the three of them had already been asked by Jia Yan. Everything is turned upside down. It seems that everything has been dug up by Jia Yan. But in fact, how knowledgeable a domain lord is, Jia Yan seemed to ask a question that he understood clearly, but when he asked it again for the second time, the other party turned around a little, and actually gained a lot of new knowledge, and for Jia Yan, it is a brand new analogy. Therefore, he did not feel unhappy with these three domain lords at all, and even restrained his thoughts as if he did not feel that the three domain lords had no cultivation questions to ask. Thank you a lot, I have to think about it carefully. Okay, Jia Yan, if you have any doubts, just ask. It's best to attack the territory lord's strength quickly. If you can reach the territory lord level quickly, I think we can be more relaxed. Even if there are more sneak attacks, we won't worry too much about you. Separating from the three domain masters, Jia Yan locked himself inside a bus-like chariot again. Why doesn't Jia Yan understand what Pangolin territory lord is saying? Can he be allowed to attack the territory lord? This is too difficult. You know, you have to be careful. Jia Yan has only been born for about 100 years. At this age, the three territory lords may not reach the top of the galaxy intermediate level, and the age at which they became territory lords, they are all between a few hundred years old and over 1,000 years old. They themselves only broke through at this age. Why do they actually want Jia Yan to break through to the realm master at an age of less than 100 years old? What about level? Of course, the most likely possibility is that they are joking. Sure enough, the more you understand the territory lord, the more you understand the difficulty of the territory lord. However, there is nothing wrong with my research path. At least during this period of time, by studying the corpses of the territory lords and communicating with a group of territory lords, I can always feel that my realm is improving rapidly. Although on the surface, it seems that my combat effectiveness has not improved as much as I imagined, but it is like a ceiling. Although my ceiling seems to have been reached, I can always feel that every time I expand my knowledge and knowledge like this, my ceiling became a little higher again. Time flies, and a few days later, Jia Yan and the three domain lords beside him arrived at the new region again. But this time, it was different from the previous situation where many high-level officials and domain owners from the region came to greet them in person. Only a few people showed up. They mysteriously connected Jia Yan to their large area, and then rushed to the barracks where soldiers were trained. In fact, several surrounding districts have carried out similar actions. This has given the killers who may still be organizing enemies smoke bombs, so that they do not know which district Jia Yan will go to. In this way, Jia Yan will rock safety has become much higher. Very good. You all learned the knowledge I learned in advance very well. Let's get on track as soon as possible. Jia Yan saw the troops he was going to teach this time, and what was different from Jia Yan's imagination was that this time he didn't have to pick people, someone just picked the troops directly, which made him feel a little less happy. Feel? Of course, this was all to protect him, so there was nothing to complain about. Everything has become more systematic. He doesn't even need to choose people when looking for books and the soldiers also come one by two. They have previewed the Yin and Yang Tao knowledge taught by Jia Yan in advance, and even have knowledge of the Yin and Yang Tao association. They seem to have learned a little bit about what to teach from the video, and they also have a lot of understanding of Jia Yan. So the whole progress is extremely fast. Senior territory lords, I want to ask today, who invented this formula? Has he been promoted to territory lord? Oh, Mikai's formula, haha. Children who have not been promoted love to watch this kind of thing. Everyone scratches their head against the so-called promotion success rate formula, and then feels sad and happy at the same time. but I don't recommend you to watch it. Watch this kind of thing. Things are like magic obstacles. Seeing too much is not good for one's mentality, and he himself has not been promoted successfully. Okay, then I won't read it. Next is another question. Studying at night has also become more formulaic. In the past, those domain lords in the previous area would sigh from time to time about Jia Yan's intelligence and so on. But after arriving in this area, they seem to receive Jia Yan. The domain lords have a lot of understanding of Jia Yan's behavior and his intelligence, and no one will bring in personal emotions. Text download address. Phone reading. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2322. This is really efficient, but it also really lacks a lot of human touch. But, now that it's reached this point, what's the point of talking about human touch? Wouldn't it be better to be able to do things more efficiently? Jia Yan has never thought that in all the areas he will go to in the future, he will have a good relationship with the local people and become really good friends or something. In fact, the cruelest reality is that Jia Yan himself is by no means a person who loves to communicate, and he is not even a warm-hearted person, the kind of person who is hospitable to everyone. Throughout his past, whenever he was not aloof and arrogant, he was usually either alone in a high position or unknown. The current behavior in Biostar is just due to the influence of the environment. To Jia Yan's nature, this is by no means the real him. Let's end the guidance work in this area as soon as possible. It must not be so easy for the enemy to figure out where we really are. After staying in this area without much human touch for another 4 or 5 days, Jia Yan began to feel exhausted. On this day, after bidding farewell to a group of domain lords, he specifically let the soldiers practice on their own while he ran to his personal lounge to rest and think. Actually, there is a fundamental question that I haven't considered yet, and that is why the killer organization assassinated me. Did someone bribe them to assassinate me, or did they themselves have a problem with me and want to kill me? After a series of previous events, Jia Yan was immersed in survival, so he didn't think much about these issues at all. But now that the situation has stabilized a little, he needs to think carefully about this fundamental issue. My personal strengths, in addition to talent, are my calmness and ability to think and analyze. Now it's time for me to analyze things clearly and make decisions. In fact, Jia Yan had always thought that this kind of thing was normal. If you, an outsider, suddenly help the Master's force to cultivate a large-scale new army, whether it is the enemies outside the Master's force or the discordant factions within the Master's force, they will treat you as an enemy. This is a very rational and normal thought. But after calming down and thinking about it, Jia Yan suddenly felt that things were not that simple. It's not that someone like him who can quickly change part of the Master's military power cannot be assassinated by outside forces, but that the assassination force is a bit too big. Not bad, but it feels like it's too much. Because for the entire Master force, there are not many existences that can be assassinated by the enemy with domain lord level powerhouses, that is, those top power officials, and direct descendants of the Master family like the Little Devil Princess. Otherwise, for ordinary middle and high level troops, even if the enemy wants to kill them, it is impossible to send out the domain lord, right? If Jia Yan's military training is a huge threat to someone, it seems reasonable to say it, but if you really think about it, you won't think that is the case. Because within the Master's forces, in addition to Jia Yan's Yin and Yang Dao joint tactics, in fact, in such a large place, various other military training programs are actually being tried continuously, and some of the results are not too bad. Jia Yan did not belittle himself, and he did not think that his joint tactics were invincible to the extent that they were unique in places like Biostar, because he had already inquired about it, and the masters themselves had similar techniques for improving the combat effectiveness of their troops. It's just that due to many reasons, it was not promoted earlier. However, the promoters of the techniques, or the commanders who trained the troops, were not assassinated. Only Jia Yan, who had just begun to promote his yin and yang Dao joint warfare, was assassinated by a domain lord, and/or an assassination by a well-known killer organization. This is a big problem. There must be some reason to see some potential in my yin and yang Dao, or in other words, because of certain characteristics, they have to want to get rid of me quickly. Jia Yan silently thought about these reasons. He listed the advantages of his Onmyado combined tactics. In fact, he did not reveal all of his joint warfare abilities. This was something decided from the beginning. This also made the yin and yang Dao joint tactics, although extremely important in the master's power, not the savior. An important reason for the same feeling, after all, Jia Yan doesn't want to attract too much attention. If he is too important, he may not be taken seriously in exchange for it. Maybe the existence of the master's family will lock him up like a prisoner and then ask him about the techniques of Onmyado and joint warfare. So what is the problem? Mediocrity is not considered mediocre, nor will it be the best, but the advantages of our yin-yang Dao joint tactics are that it costs very little and can quickly form an army. The future prospects are not bad, and we may even create a galaxy-level team to deal with the domain lord. To be honest, if Jia Yan were a power lord himself, he would be moved by the advantages of his current joint tactics. The cost is small, yes, this is a huge advantage. For the masters, the other techniques they have to build a strong army all require a large amount of material investment. This is probably the biggest advantage of my joint tactics. Advantage. But if the efforts of other branches of the military are shown when the power is in danger, the person who controls the power will not be stingy. So, although this may be the reason for the enemy to attack and kill me, it will definitely not be the main reason. Then the reason why you want to deal with me in the future is the speed of forming an army. Suddenly, Jia Yan was slightly startled. He seemed to have grasped something. What if the enemy's main reason for attacking us is that he is worried that the joint force he has trained will form an army too quickly? And they don't want the masters to have a powerful military branch appear too quickly. There is only one reason. Could it be that they don't actually want to fight a long war with the masters' forces, but want a quick victory? At this moment, Jia Yan felt as if a bolt of lightning flashed through his mind, and his whole body was shaken. Previously, he had always believed that the master's power had a radius of more than 100 million kilometers. With such a large power, even if it was slowly grinding away, it could drag out the war for many years, and even exhaust the enemy in the end. In the end, it would turn into a bad war, and no one would be able to defeat it. May win. But after the current analysis appeared, he felt that he seemed to have thought wrong. If a big force is so difficult to fight, wouldn't it mean that wars between so many forces in Biostar would never happen, because no one can do anything about anyone? But the war never stops, and countless forces are in the process of being overthrown and established from time to time. In other words, it is possible for big forces to be overthrown. Are they preparing to attack the master's forces quickly? Jia Yan was shocked, and then his whole body became energetic. He believed that he had found the real reason. It was possible for the master's power to be quickly destroyed by the enemy. That's why the enemy sent the territory lord to attack him, because he was the most likely variable. If this is the case, doesn't it mean that the enemy may take the next step against me and kill me, a unique command and training instructor, before my Jia Yan troops truly become a formidable enemy, kill and eliminate future danger? His surprise was no small matter. He doesn't care at all whether the master's force is defeated, let alone whether the lives of so many people in this force will be ruined. He only cares about the possibility that he will become the enemy's main target. That would be a huge problem. When Jia Yan came to Biostar, he never wanted to get involved in such a big event. Especially before he arrived at the Territory Lord, he had a plan to make a fortune in silence, and even used the matter of coming up with a joint strategy was done step by step carefully. Unexpectedly, he would be dragged into such a big event in the end, and might even become the center point of the storm. What the hell, am I being tricked? No wonder, within the Master's forces, I'm afraid they would have guessed this a long time ago. Otherwise, it's just a commander. Why would 3 familiar domain lords be assigned to me? Guards. I thought those 3 seniors had such great autonomy, but now that I think about it, it is already a certainty that they will follow me. After opening his mind, Jia Yan was able to think clearly about many things that he couldn't figure out. Why do the regional lords who pass by each other value him more? Logically speaking, even if he had such a joint strategy, he would not be treated by so many domain masters. He would have to be treated with approval by almost everyone along the way. But in fact, along the way, he never imagined that any domain master would look down on him or even deal with him. The reason is very simple. They have already been told about the importance of Jia Yan's joint tactics. Even the enemy is dealing with the possibility of Jia Yan. In this way, even if there is any domain lord, they still don't think that the mere mid-level galaxy the existence of the summit is so important. The worst they can do is not meet Jia Yan. Haha, after you open your mind, many things can be explained. Fortunately, I thought that I was low-key enough in the North Star. I am afraid that now, I may not only be targeted by the enemy, but also within the Master's forces. In fact, they have already set their sights on me and have their own plans for me. Those 3 senior domain lords. After Jia Yan's mind wandered, he thought of the 3 domain lords who were very good to him. Although he didn't want to think of people so bad, after thinking of so many things, he always felt that the 3 domain lords didn't seem to be that sincere towards him. Sincerely. Of course, even if they have a mission and treat me well, they are showing their true feelings. I can't think of them as enemies, but I will be more careful when talking to them in the future, because they may also it's not that they are completely good to me. If things change, the possibility of abandoning me as a chess piece is not impossible. Jia Yan, who originally thought that he had a few own people in Biostar, suddenly felt a strong sense of loneliness. Let's do this. I have to consider my own safety in my future actions. Otherwise, if the enemy really wants to sneak attack and assassinate me, it will be difficult for me to hide. If I can avoid it perfectly every time in a mobile situation, then I have only one solution. That is to reduce mobility and slow down my journey. In this way, whether the enemy wants to make a sneak attack or the Master's forces want to use me to lure the enemy to attack me, it will be difficult. My life is in danger, that is, it's getting lower. Now that he has thought of possible dangerous conditions, how could Jia Yan not think of countermeasures? He immediately thought of a way to deal with it. When the enemy wants to make a sneak attack, Jia Yan doesn't care whether there is a secret protector behind him, or whether one of the 3 domain masters who protect him has hidden strength, but in the end, he wants to reduce his danger, so he will use the most powerful force. The stupid way is to just reduce the number of trips. And during this time of stopping the flow, he will not immerse himself in training. Instead, he will try his best to understand the Territory Lord experience he has learned during this period, and get as close to the Territory Lord as possible to prepare for the breakthrough to the Territory Lord. Huh? Jia Yan, do you want to merge the soldiers from several regions into one place for training in the future region? On this day, Jia Yan found Pangolin and other 3 senior Territory Lords who protected him along the way. As soon as he said this, the Pangolin and others were really surprised for a while. Yes, you think, 3 seniors, since I will be attacked by surprise, then I can reduce the number of times I go out. Besides, I have to go to the nearby area for training. Why not let them spend a certain amount of time to gather in one area? This way we will have more troops, and then I can try to bring out a large coalition force. Maybe if it succeeds, it will give my coalition forces greater combat effectiveness. Jia Yan didn't hide anything, he just meant that he was also worried about being sneak attacked. There was no need to hide about this kind of thing. If a galaxy-level being was sneak attacked by a domain lord, everyone would be afraid, okay. And in his last paragraph, said that the eyes of several territory lords lit up. Yes, they had indeed been arranged by the superiors to protect Jia Yan along the way. Their protection of Jia Yan also represents the desire to see Jia Yan's joint tactics play a greater role and actual combat capability. In this way, the existence, status, and value of their protection will be high, and they will serve as the executioner of this time. The benefits and reputation obtained by taskers in the future will become higher. Although Jia Yan expressed that he was also afraid of sneak attackers, he also said that he wanted troops from several regions to come to one place for centralized training, which would allow Jia Yan to try to cultivate a large number of Jia Yan troops. Which moved them. In fact, the biggest problem with Jia Yan's troops, at least for the moment, is that many domain owners have identified that the maximum number is 2,000, and 5,000 is unlikely. After all, there is no precedent. But now Jia Yan himself proposed to cultivate a large number of troops, which shows that he has a certain degree of confidence in his heart. Text download address. Phone reading. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2323. Not to mention gathering the troops selected from several major regions, the number of which reached 10,000. Whether Jia Yan can turn such a large army into a joint force, as long as he can create a force of 5,000 people that he can command like an arm, that is a qualitative breakthrough, and the entire master force will cheer again because of his breakthrough. Okay, I'll go and ask. Senior Pangolin didn't do much to cover up. He had already thought of it. Jia Yan would definitely understand that their protection of Jia Yan was not decided by the three of them at will, but by someone else's instructions. So he opened the skylight and said the clear words also allowed Jia Yan to try his best to eliminate the possible barriers between them. A smart person can definitely think that the actions of the three territory lords cannot be aimless, let alone the result of emotions. The dignified territory lord will not be so emotional. In fact, Jia Yan's reply was very fast, and came down almost immediately. Did they agree? Yes, the higher UPS have actually been thinking about a more perfect method for a long time. Unexpectedly, before they had thought about it, you sent the request almost immediately, so as to save them from thinking too much, and also asked me to thank you. Woolen cloth. Haha, there's no need for that. If I have any unique requirements in the future, I'll just try to satisfy them as much as possible. Jia Yan's words have become more and more cold. Although the relationship between the two parties cannot be said to have become bad this time, in fact, he knows that the other party does not really want to protect Jia Yan, but has an order. The feeling is different. Okay, Jia Yan, since you have to teach several troops at once, you will definitely have your own difficulties, and the model will also need to be changed. As mentioned above, you will be given 2 days to revise the teaching policy, and during these 2 days, they will show us a live broadcast. This is the first performance of your Jia Yan troops in Yukio region on the battlefield. I hope you can correct them for their mistakes during the live broadcast. Jia Yan was stunned for a moment, then nodded. It is certain that the troops he has trained will go to the battlefield, so there is nothing to be surprised about. Jia Yan just didn't expect it to happen so quickly. It's only been a few months. On the second day, Jia Yan was indeed carrying out changes in large unit training in his office as others had hoped. However, he would not spend the hard-earned rest time only on official matters, but on most of this time was spent on his own cultivation. For so many days, it was a major stimulus and improvement for Jia Yan to get the information he wanted to know about the Domain Lord's promotion from other territory lords. This kind of improvement is not about real strength, but some kind of enhancement that greatly improves Jia Yan's mind and level. Perhaps compared to him in the past, at least half a year ago, Jia Yan's strength improvement is not that big. But if Jia Yan half a year ago met Jia Yan now, it would be like a farmer meeting a noble. There is a huge difference in class. Perhaps none of them really believe that after I have received so many guidance from domain masters, there will be a real opportunity for promotion. But I believe in myself. Although this opportunity has not appeared for the time being, it will never happen. Too long and it will appear. Jia Yan is very confident. This confidence comes not only from the confidence in his own talent, but also the confidence in the evolution beast race. There are so many seniors of the evolution beast race who have not been stuck at the galaxy level for too long. Each one of them can, after being promoted to the territory lord level, it is rumored that each of them only paused for less than a long time in the middle level of the galaxy level. Jia Yan doesn't think he is much better than others, but he must be at a similar level, right? If one or two of those evolved beast seniors, on average, took about 200 to 300 years to be promoted to domain lord, then my current age is less than 100 years old. If I can being promoted to territory lord before I turn 100 years old means that my talent exceeds theirs, and even if I don't surpass them, I will definitely be promoted successfully in another 100 years. Jia Yan is not big-hearted. It's really not that big. He has only lived less than 100 years, and he has already reached the peak of the middle level of the galaxy. Now he is stuck in front of a level. He is scheduled to be stuck for 100 years, which is already double his life. So how can you say he has a big heart? But if this matter is known to other domain lords, or the creatures who are also stuck at the peak of the middle level of the galaxy, I am afraid that one or two of them will say that Jia Yan is too arrogant. Territory lord level, such a huge and difficult level to break through, Jia Yan actually dares to say that he will break through it within 100 years? He was promoted to the peak of the middle level galaxy when he was about 100 years old, but in fact, there are many races that can be promoted to the peak of the middle level galaxy faster than this. You see, many of the so-called geniuses of those races you have reached the peak of the middle level of the galaxy before you are 100 years old, but you will never reach the territory lord level in your whole life. Where are you, Jia Yan Ke? Of course, Yang Queen knows Honghu's ambitions. They are not Jia Yan, and they don't know the evolved beast race. Jia Yan will not bother to talk to them about his ambitions. There are some things, some ambitions, just keep them in your heart and know them yourself. A day of training, for a strong person, is like no rest, and it quickly passes by studying things. Jia Yan, today is the first actual combat of Jia Yan's troops in Yukio region. Are you nervous? Not nervous. The next day, Jia Yan ended his research and went to a huge studio outside. The meeting was attended by almost all the territory lords in this large area of the barracks, as well as the 3 territory lords who protected Jia Yan. They all came to see the battle of Jia Yan's troops in Yukio region. Everyone was looking forward to it, but Jia Yan was the only one who was a little absent-minded. It would be a lie to say that he is not looking forward to it, but Jia Yan is not as much looking forward to it as they are, because he does not know at all what kind of enemy Jia Yan's troops in Yukio region will face, and he does not know what kind of enemy they will face even if they win. What does it have to do with myself? Whether he loses or wins, for Jia Yan, he has already demonstrated the beauty of his joint tactics with Jia Yan's unit of the Grassland Army. If Yukio's unit does not fight well, it can only be said that it is Commander can't. Besides, even if he doesn't fight well and makes others think that his yin-yang dao combined fighting method is not as powerful as imagined, that's not bad. At least he won't be so unscrupulous when he comes to sneak attack on his enemy. After all, his joint tactics are not strong, So why waste the powerful domain lord on sneak attack? One of them has died, and if the others fail again, no matter which force they are, they will probably die of heartache. In the huge studio, the screen rose, and not long after, the battle started on the screen. Jia Yan has been watching silently. This is a confrontation between two battlefield troops who don't know where they are. The number of troops with the characteristics of the master's troops is obviously less than that of the enemy. What's even more frightening is that the army even lacked one territory lord and only had two territory lords. When fighting against the enemy's three territory lords, they seemed to be alone and unable to support themselves. It could almost be said that they were retreating steadily. And just when the battle was about to become one-sided, a strange team suddenly emerged from the flank of the battlefield, like a bolt of lightning, and pounced on the core of the enemy's army. Seeing this, Jia Yan was slightly surprised. The joint tactics he uses, when directing battles, generally use fighting tactics. It can even be said that when he directs battles, he generally uses the method of maximizing his own strength to fight, but he does not fight so fiercely. Even if you gain an advantage in the battle, it will make the battle last for a long time. And this troop that suddenly appeared was the Jia Yan troop from the Yukia region, and it was also the first Jia Yan troop that he had trained after leaving the grassland area. The fighting method he adopted was impossible for Jia Yan to adopt. It was extremely violent and pierced the enemy's heart from the beginning. In other words, he regarded himself as an absolute trump card. It is extremely brave, but if it is resisted, the casualties will definitely be heavy. It's not that he is not as powerful as Jia Yan, but his style is different, because Jia Yan's playing style is too cautious, and if he is delayed by the enemy for a long time, variables may occur. The current commander of Jia Yan's force is not the territory lord that Jia Yan thought he was, but a peak mid-level star of the galaxy that he had never paid attention to when he directed this joint force before. This guy seems to have always been unknown. He just doesn't speak. His performance seems to be at the level of an average mid-level galaxy peak. I didn't expect him to be a commanding talent. I didn't pay attention to him at the time. Jia Yan's heart paused for a moment, and then his compound eyes flashed with light as he observed this guy's command. Jia Yan's troops did not have a domain lord to command them, but under the spearhead effect of several galaxy-level joint teams, they exerted astonishing combat power. There were only 2,000 people. In the fierce battle between the two sides, which totaled more than 50,000 people, they were unexpectedly strong. A huge wound was torn. Well done. Joint warfare is truly worthy of its reputation. Before Jia Yan could speak, the eyes of the group of domain lords around him suddenly shone with joy. For them, they are the ones who control the power, so they attach great importance to the victory or defeat of their own power, so they are naturally very happy when the troops have good effects. Jia Yan is different. He doesn't have much identification with the power of the master, so he can't empathize with it. Jia Yan didn't say anything, and just continued to observe the progress of the battle. The soldiers of Jia Yan's army are naturally terrifying, otherwise his joint tactics would not be so valued by the master's troops. It's just that Jia Yan didn't expect that someone would actually use command skills that were different from his own, and combined with the techniques guided by Jia Yan, the whole temperament of the joint troops became very iron-blooded and indomitable. Of course, this change is only basic. Jia Yan's commanding skills are still used in every department inside. This is why Jia Yan feels so powerful about the mid-level commander of the galaxy. Because people can create a feeling that changes the style of the entire army within their own framework, this is a proper war artist. Boom. The troops quickly rushed into the area where the domain lords were fighting. When they arrived here, Jia Yan's eyes became brighter. Because when he taught in that army, he didn't teach them how to deal with the territory lord. But this second instructed unit actually went to fight against a domain lord when it was on the battlefield for the first time. The enemy territory lord was obviously extremely surprised, and then he started fighting with the 3 galaxy-level teams in Jia Yan's army with great disdain. The 3 teams have become one, that is, the 9 galaxy-level powerhouses have united into one unit, and their combat effectiveness will become astonishing. However, what Jia Yan taught them was a joint fighting method, so it was impossible to deal with the domain lord. As expected, the organization of this 9-man team was far inferior to that of the 4-man team that Jia Yan was in charge of. One person was injured in one blow. But another person immediately stepped forward. But the second person was injured again. After retreating, the third person pushed to the top again. In this way, when the 5th person was seriously injured, this joint team was able to block 5 consecutive attacks from the domain master. This alone had already caused several domain masters to shout frequently at Jia Yan's side. Turning his gaze towards Jia Yan, there was a strange look in his eyes. They knew that Jia Yan's team under Jia Yan's own command might have fought against a domain lord and had drawn several times. This was information they had already known. But on the current battlefield, it was not Jia Yan himself who was directing the battle. Those Galaxy-class people who had been trained by Jia Yan for just a few months actually took advantage of Jia Yan's joint tactics, at the expense of injuries, and to some extent, they were incompatible with each other. A domain lord fought to a tie. Although the tie was only temporary, when all the galaxy levels were injured, they would die. But this is already an extremely terrible battle result. Every one of them, looking for the book, was already shocked, because this was just a quick army, and more importantly, this was the first battle of the new army on the battlefield. The first battle ended like this. What if we gave them 2 or 3 actual battles? Wouldn't such a force soon become even more terrifying? And Jia Yan himself, after this army, also trained several similar troops. Each one has a team that can fight against the domain lord. Horrible, really terrible. With such a force, it's no wonder that people from those forces would find someone to assassinate Jia Yan. Of course, it is also possible that some forces within the master's power hired someone to assassinate him. After all, the appearance of a figure like Jia Yan caused certain losses of interests and caused their murderous intention. However, the current ones are all domain lords who are friendly to Jia Yan. They all met with Jia Yan and exchanged combat experiences with Jia Yan. They definitely did not have any prejudice against Jia Yan, so when they saw Jia Yan, the army turned out to be such a terrifying force, and everyone's thoughts became active. Text download address. Phone reading. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2324. It is said that Jia Yan seems to be training a larger Jia Yan army soon, 5,000 people? Or 10,000? 10,000 people is impossible. Jia Yan said that he would only train 5,000 people. So even if the scale is 5,000 people, it is already extremely terrifying. Jia Yan's army of 2,000 people is still a bit too thin on the battlefield. Yes, but 5,000 people, even if they are thrown into a battlefield of tens of thousands of people, are very worthy of attention. And for the position of leader of such a force, even their domain lords would definitely fight for it. But what if we have a good relationship with Jia Yan? This is the man who trains the troops. If he says a few words and says that a certain senior territory lord seems to be very suitable for commanding this troop, wouldn't it mean that such a terrifying army will be obtained? Thinking of this, the territory lords who were watching the battlefield situation began to think carefully. The core of their thoughts, that is, Jia Yan himself, has not paid that much attention for the time being. Senior, give me a real-time communication device. There shouldn't be any time delay in such a close battlefield, right? Well, there is no delay. Do you really want to direct the battle on the spot? Good. When Jia Yan received a phone call that went straight to the center of the battlefield and the commander-in-chief of Jia Yan's army, the Zing class, at the same time. I'm Jia Yan. The galaxy-level powerhouse felt a shock all over his body, and then his demeanor suddenly became respectful. Because the name Jia Yan has become more and more mythical in their minds recently, and their Jia Yan troops in Yukio region are the first beneficiaries of Jia Yan's myth. Although he took over Jia Yan's position and took command, it did not mean that he dared to question Jia Yan, because the closer he got to the joint battle method and the closer he got to his Yin and Yang Dao, the more he could understand how intelligent the creator of Yin and Yang Dao is. This is a level that he will never be able to catch up with in his lifetime. Sir Jia Yan, your subordinates are looking after you. His eyes were red and he almost wanted to cry. Jia Yan was silent for a moment on the other end of the communicator. He didn't expect that he would hear such excited and loyal words in the other party's tone. However, he did not lose his composure. He just remained silent for half a second before continuing. Now follow my command. You have suffered too many losses. If this continues, Yukio's army will be short of manpower. My subordinates are useless and cannot command the troops you left behind. Stop using your hands, hurry up and do what I say. Come on, squads 1 to 10, move to the left at a 50-degree angle, and the 19th and 27th, move to the right at a 30-degree angle. Under the curious attention of a group of domain owners, Jia Yanzhen conducted an on-the-spot direct command of the war. Seeing this scene, the territory lords and other galaxy-level soldiers present were simply stunned. They just thought that Jia Yan wanted to use the communicator to conduct on-site command, which was the kind of general command, or just to issue certain goals. But what they never expected was that Jia Yan was actually commanding Jia Yan's troops on the spot. Every little detail, it was like he was fighting at the war scene. It's usually impossible to do something like this, right? But it's right to think about it. Jia Yan's team was trained by Jia Yan himself. After more than 10 days together, Jia Yan remembered the abilities and cooperation between each team, and even everyone's name. So it is really possible for Jia Yan to do the current command. It's just that this is so magical that it is difficult for a group of territory lords to understand how Jia Yan dares and has the ability to direct the details of the war in a place that may be millions of kilometers away. This requires the ability to judge on the spot and the ability to respond to one's own war experience. But even if they were amazed or didn't believe it, in short, when the existences of Jia Yan's troops over there heard that it was Master Jia Yan himself who personally took over the Jia Yan troops in Zyokyo region remotely, everyone, it was at this moment that I realized that I would be my true strongest self. Listen to my orders, teams 1 to 10, on the left. The commanding galaxy-level being gave the order calmly. The entire soldiers in Jia Yan's unit acted as promised. They knew that if this order was given by Master Jia Yan, he would not lie to them. And it must be effective, because during the more than 10 days of training, they all felt strongly that Master Jia Yan himself was the absolute authority among the authorities regarding joint tactics. Any one of them, even that the galaxy-level beings who took over the command of Jia Yan's troops were far behind. Boom. The battlefield situation was like going from a piece of loose sand to directly entering the rhythm of Jia Yan's troops. What? In the center of the battle circle, the territory lord, who was fighting several galaxy-level beings and preparing to injure several galaxy-level squads of Jia Yan's troops, found that the galaxy-level squads entangled with him in front of him calmly escaped from him one by one. Attack range. Want to escape? The territory lord was just about to give chase, but his whole demeanor was slightly shaken. Another galaxy-level team passed by in front of him. He couldn't help but take precautions, but this team was almost using full speed together, gliding past like a meteor, making it difficult for him to catch up. Looking at the leaving team, they have already integrated into Jia Yan's army. It's hard for him to go directly to Jia Yan's army, right? Although he still doesn't think that Jia Yan's troops will bring any danger to his life, this army is too evil. Just a few small teams at the galaxy level almost stopped him. This is simply a shame for the existence of a territory lord. Fortunately, before the war started, they knew that there would be a special force from within the Master's forces. Even if a domain lord was intercepted, everyone should not be too shocked, otherwise there would be other domain lords on the spot. He was sarcastic. Of course, even now, he felt very shameless. Kill. Even then, he saw in the distance again that the Galaxy-class team of Jia Yan's troops who had just left his side suddenly came to a group of our Galaxy-class troops. Faced with such a small Galaxy-level team that can even fight against the Domain Lord, the Galaxy-level beings on their side, even if there is a fighting type at the top of the Galaxy intermediate level, are still not a single enemy, and they are instantly defeated. This team killed 3 Galaxy-class. Damn it! The Territory Lord's expression condensed, he shouted suddenly, and rushed forward. If he wanted to intercept this team, it would be best to kill 2 of them, then the formation of Jia Yan's team should collapse. Suddenly. Damn it, here we go again. But the next moment, the Territory Lord almost spit out blood, because there was another member of the Galaxy-level Jia Yan team. The 3 of them were like ghosts rushing towards another battlefield, passing by the Territory Lord. Before. Are you asking him to defend you? If you are on guard, you have to slow down, but don't be on guard. God knows if the beings in this team are coming for him. The small team interfered with the Territory Lord and did not delay them in attacking and killing several other Galaxy-class enemies. Suddenly, the Territory Lord heard screams. Die! The Domain Lord activated his brainwave power and blasted towards the members of the Galaxy-level Jia Yan team not far away. Buzz. But at such a long distance, the attack with brainwave power was of no use to Jia Yan's team who could fight you personally. Therefore, when they defended, not only were there no casualties, but they also delayed the Territory Lord for a while. Groove. Seeing that he couldn't get any advantage, the Territory Lord had no choice but to chase the Galaxy-level existence of another Jia Yan team at the other end. It is not that there are no other members of Jia Yan's team along the way, but most of them are heaven-level teams. On this kind of battlefield, a Domain Lord wastes time to attack and kill such low-level beings, just like he wasted his own time, and then caused all the friendly troops to die, so he didn't even waste this time, and allowed the heaven-level teams to kill our current low-end troops one by one. He believed that as long as the Galaxy-level team of Jia Yan's team was killed, they would be the final winner of this battle. However, the new special forces that control the power are simply too terrifying. This is only a force of 2,000 people. After entering the battlefield, it not only held back a Domain Lord like myself, but also had other energy, causing a large number of casualties to our personnel in the center of the entire battlefield. This kind of combat power, to be honest, exceeds that of a Territory Lord. It's terrible. You must report to the rear when you return, saying that the Master's force already has such a terrifying combat force that can be used. Puff. Huh? What happened? He escaped again. Suddenly, just as he was about to approach the Galaxy-level team that had been swinging in front of him, he found that the team was shaking in the battle circle, just like fish, and disappeared directly into the chaos of the battle circle. This made him suddenly lose his bearings, and he didn't know whether he should continue to pursue him. No, the commanding personnel of this unit must have changed. The style of play just now was a bit rough and life-threatening. Although it has a certain level, it is far from the level shown now. The current level of command, then that's the real master level. This Territory Lord's expression turned ugly for a moment. Who is your current commander? He suddenly sent out a burst of brainwave power, which exploded like thunder in the center of this vast battlefield circle. If every legendary special forces of the Master had this kind of commander commanding behind them, it would be ridiculous. A special force of 2,000 people, without even a Territory Lord, could counterattack. With a force of 2,000 people led by the Territory Lord, this is simply unreasonable. There was a moment of silence on the battlefield. Our current commander is personally commanded by Lord Jia Yan. The former commander of the Galaxy class, after being silent for a while, received Jia Yan's approval, and proudly and calmly said the commander's name. Jia Yan? I know that he is the creator of this tactic. It is said that this joint tactic is just a part of the cultivation path he created. It is indeed a powerful existence. He even has this tactic, which almost makes people wonder. Even a territory lord like me is being fooled around. That territory lord exists, and if his expression becomes even colder, Jia Yan is already on his list of people he wants to get rid of quickly. But at the same time, he also breathed a sigh of relief. If this is the combat power commanded by the creator himself from a distance, then at least it is easier to understand. What he is afraid of is that every commander of this kind of force has such an ability, which would be a big problem. And this is what Jia Yan, who is millions of kilometers away, wants to see. He asked the galaxy-level commander to tell him what he was commanding, because he didn't want to make him think more highly of the enemy because of such a stunning battle between Jia Yan's troops in the Yukio region, otherwise there would be more. As a powerful killer, he couldn't stand it. Of course, at the same time, he is also letting the master forces see that even if he teaches others the joint fighting method, the creator of this fighting method is still not comparable to others. Besides, Onmyoji himself created it, not to mention that others have caught up with him, they haven't even started yet. This is another way for Jia Yan to gain the master's power and realize his importance. It can be said that he has accomplished many things with one stone, but he is also dancing on the flames. Maybe an accident will happen and he will burp. Boom. With Jia Yan's instructions, the battle became more anxious, but this atmosphere did not make the masters of this large area millions of kilometers away feel too nervous. As the domain masters, they have gone through countless battles in their lives, and the current battle will not shock them too much at all. They just kept looking at Jia Yan, who was directing the war through the screen. I have known Jia Yan for a few days, but it seems like I just met him today. Especially the power of Jia Yan's fighting method, which I seem to have just met today. I have always known how powerful it is, so I went to Shiyuan M also pays enough attention to it, but the problem is that even if it pays so much attention, it seems that it is not enough to describe the power of this kind of army. You know, a force of 2,000 people not only personally held back a domain lord, but also stabilized the battlefield in a war zone. This is equivalent to stabilizing a territory lord and defeating 3,000 or 4,000 enemy troops at the same time. Can't hold my head up. If the domain lord hadn't caused casualties to Jia Yan's squad by coming and going on the battlefield, maybe 3,000 or 4,000 enemy troops would have been wiped out by Jia Yan's squad long ago. This is simply not just awesome, it's outrageous. It's a pity that this kind of effect can only be created by Jia Yan himself. Let alone the commander, even if a domain lord like us learns his yin and yang dao personally, it will be difficult for him to achieve the same level. All the territory lords felt very sorry after seeing the combat effects of Jia Yan's troops. Although they were also satisfied with the effect of the previous galaxy-level commander's command, they were afraid of comparison. Compared with Jia Yan's command effect, the battle commanded by the galaxy-level commander had to be thrown away, and it was not pleasing to the eye at all. Text download address. Phone reading. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2325. Unfortunately, all of them knew that the difference between Jia Yan's command and that galaxy-level commander was that he made use of the pros and cons of the entire Jia Yan unit and the overall view. This kind of thing is difficult to explain. It's not difficult. It can't be easy even if it's simple. In particular, it requires understanding and in-depth study of Jia Yan's yin and yang dao. Before being promoted to territory lord in person, it would be really dangerous to have the courage to abandon martial arts and learn his yin and yang dao. Bang! Team Jia Yan, right? I remember you, as well as the other remnants of the Master's power. We will fight again tomorrow. Next time we will definitely kill them all. One time, Jia Yan commanded 2 members of Jia Yan's team. Unexpectedly, they appeared from behind a territory lord inexplicably, and then attacked and injured him one after another. He was almost killed by a domain master who was fighting with him. He was startled, and then, with his injuries, he hurriedly uttered harsh words, and then quickly ran back. Let's go, retreat. We didn't win this battle, and it doesn't count as the Master's power. At that moment, the other territory lord also gave up the fight, and the territory lord who had been wandering around in Jia Yan's team also quickly gave up chasing the galaxy-level team in Jia Yan's team, and quickly broke away. Battlefield. Since the men of Jia Yan's army can hurt one territory lord, it means that they can also hurt the second one. What's more, after the other 2 territory lords in the Master's power have no opponents, they will definitely come to surround and kill this one. The territory lord wandering in Jia Yan's army, if he doesn't escape now, he may become unable to escape later. As a result, all the domain lords fled together, and the entire battlefield became one-sided. Except for some friendly forces of the Master's forces who chased and killed the remnants of the enemy's troops who had not had time to escape, there was no longer any loud shouting. Killing sound. Thank you, Chief Jia Yan. When Jia Yan saw this scene, he calmly handed over his command to the galaxy-level commander he had trained. Then the commander naturally thanked Jia Yan with great gratitude. It's a matter of course. Putting aside for the moment, this strong man still respects Jia Yan. Even if he no longer respects Jia Yan's current performance is impossible for him to compare with. It's only natural to show some respect like that. You're welcome. I can't help you remotely all the time. You need to command this force well in the future. Jia Yan gave her kind words for a few moments and then disconnected. In the field here, a group of territory lords, who did not look like territory lords at this moment, were guarding Jia Yan in the center, listening to what he said. Jia Yan, who hung up the communication, was a little panicked for a moment. What to do if you are stared at by a group of domain owners? Waiting online, a bit urgent. Jia Yan almost didn't go online to post a request for help. Seniors, looking at me like this makes this junior a little embarrassed. Ahem, okay, what's going on with you guys? Didn't we already expect what Jia Yan did just now? Why are you just watching him? As Jia Yan's temporary guard, the pangolin creature stepped forward obligingly to protect Jia Yan from the wind and rain. But in his own heart, he was also shocked by the battle just now. You must know that the battle just now was in a war zone on the other side of the Ukiah region. They all knew that war zone, and it was a war zone that they were ready to give up. It was impossible for the troops they rushed to support to let too many territory lords pass. Because the enemy's large force of territory lords is at the rear of the war zone, if the master forces dare to release a large number of territory lords, then the enemy will also send corresponding territory lords to fight, which will lead to extremely serious consequences. Therefore, no one in this war zone was optimistic about this battle, but what they didn't expect was that Jia Yan's troops were regarded as having no solution. There were only 2,000 people, and there was still a small army without any territorial lord. Joining such a war will definitely be questioned by countless people. I am afraid that this time it is just to let Jia Yan's troops go to the battlefield to test the effect. But what I never expected was that Jia Yan's troops not only did well, but also did well beyond everyone's expectations. Especially after he personally took over the battle command, Jia Yan's troops, which were still a little shaky and might be annihilated, seemed to be completely reborn. While playing tricks on a domain lord, he also commanded the small number of Jia Yan's troops. The enemy combat troops were beaten to a pulp. This is amazing. Jia Yan, just tell me, what are the conditions for commanding the 5,000-man army you have trained? I am interested in this command right. No, it's me who likes the command right. I also want to command this army. Aren't you not interested in this kind of army? Who said I'm not interested anymore? I'm very interested now. I advise you not to argue with me. I'm still a relative of the commander-in-chief of the region. Damn it, we are all territory lords, but you are using your family ties to oppress others. Who is afraid? If you have the ability, go to the competition stage and compete. I won't go with you. I'm a long-range combat professional. Wouldn't I be looking for abuse on the competition stage with you? If you have the ability, I can fight in the audience. For a moment, Jia Yan felt that the domain lords watching the battle around him seemed to have turned into vendors in the vegetable market, making a lot of noise and chaos. He smiled, not surprised. Because the performance of Jia Yan's troops was really good, even he himself was a little surprised. Of course, what is actually more amazing is his commanding ability. In the previous situation, when he commanded, he was focused on nothing and did not care about so many repercussions. Now when he looks back, when I was directing, I really made great progress. After chatting with the domain owners from so many major regions, I have really made progress, and the progress is not small. Jia Yan understood that his progress was not sudden, but a manifestation of his overall progress after chatting with so many domain owners unconsciously. This is what he got for so many days. Seeing the discussions among the territory lords in front of him, he suddenly had a stronger feeling, he would be promoted to territory lord, and the time would be too short. This is a kind of momentum, and it is also a kind of spiritual induction ability. Although it cannot be said with certainty, for a strong man, having such momentum means that he may really become a hero in the near future. Being promoted to territory lord, because the strong person's own mysterious induction cannot be fake, they can't tell it, but there must be a reason for such a temperament. Huh? The appearance of the territory lord. What? Jia Yan actually shows the appearance of a territory lord now. What's amazing, when we complimented him on the possibility of being a territory lord before, it was just a compliment. Now he actually has the appearance of a territory lord. In other words, no matter whether it takes decades or 100 years, he will eventually become a territory lord. In this case, although the strength has not changed much, he can already be called a quasi-region lord. For a time, all the powerful domain lords present were in confusion. Even after seeing Jia Yan's face at this moment, they were no less shocked than when they saw the victory of Jia Yan's troops just now. The appearance of a domain lord is a term that is used more frequently in the North Superstar. As the name suggests, it is the temperament displayed by a strong man who has cultivated to the peak of the middle level of the galaxy, in a situation where he is close to realizing the true meaning of the domain lord. This is an extremely rare thing. Generally speaking, the mid-level peak powerhouses in the galaxy who show such a temperament, regardless of whether they are fighting type or not, will be promoted to the domain lord level in a short time, and it will not take too long, at least a few years in a month, or no more than 100 years at most. For the territory lord, this happened almost in the blink of an eye. This shows that they have been praising Jia Yan as a junior, saying that Jia Yan will definitely have the status of a domain lord in the future, and this matter is about to come true. This is definitely something that makes a group of territory lords feel very messy in the wind. After all, after some time, Jia Yan might be on an equal footing with them. Now, everyone would no longer dare to treat Jia Yan as a junior in terms of his emotions and attitude. What's more, Jia Yan is a fighting type mid-level peak existence in the galaxy. This advantage is likely to be brought to the domain lord level. Among ordinary domain lords, there are many who are not combat type promotions. Once Jia Yan is promoted, after arriving at the territory lord, the strength may be directly higher than some of the territory lords present. Because for things like territory lord, it is not the fighting type that can be promoted. Instead, most of them are the unknown mid-level peaks of the galaxy, who are suddenly promoted out of nowhere. Often, the fighting type has been pursuing for a long time but has not been promoted. Therefore, among the territory lords present, there were not many fighting types, or none at all. But of course, if a combat type existence is promoted to a territory lord, the combat power will be explosive. It is very normal to be stronger than the average territory lord just after being promoted. After practicing for a period of time, compared to many veteran territory lords strong, that is also very possible. Only the domain lord who is also a fighting type can be compared. And Jia Yan might become such a territory lord. Wouldn't this make the territory lords present, one or two, quickly correct their mentality? Besides, even if Jia Yan doesn't get promoted, if he cooperates with Jia Yan's team now, he might be able to draw a tie with some of the domain masters present. With these two relationships, the territory lords suddenly discovered that they could only treat Jia Yan as a territory lord who was not a territory lord. Otherwise, if Jia Yan was actually promoted to a territory lord in the future, wouldn't he remember the hatred? That would not be great. No ordinary territory lord dares to offend a fighting territory lord. That is what a fool would do. Jia Yan himself was stunned. Everything seemed to be in a vague state in his ears, and the way he looked at things seemed to be different. There is a thread holding me. Jia Yan almost ignored the words of the domain masters and wanted to stretch out his foot to pull the line that was almost holding him. The domain masters on one side all realized that Jia Yan must be comprehending something and retreated silently. Puff. Jia Yan took a step forward, but couldn't reach the line. Thank you all seniors. I am very tired today, so I will go back and rest first. Jia Yan said, and then walked towards his temporary residence without looking back. Even pangolins and other creatures did not catch up, because they knew that Jia Yan's statement of tiredness was false. The key was that he must have gained some insights after gaining the status of a territory lord. This kind of understanding is a key thing, and they don't dare to disturb it, otherwise it will be like cutting off Jia Yan's future as a territory lord, which is no different from killing people. Presumably Jia Yan will fight for them. Of course, the reality is not that exaggerated. Jia Yan just feels that he seems to have grasped something. The appearance of the territory lord, the posture of the territory lord. Of course, Jia Yan would not have failed to hear what others said. He knew that his current situation was the so-called region lord, and he chewed on this term from time to time. He had never heard this kind of term on other planets, including in the nearest Milky Way central star domain. However, he had heard similar words. For example, Black Sheep seemed to have been talked about becoming a territory lord, but he had not yet heard of it. There is no clear expression that he has the appearance of a domain lord. Now that I think about it, the former Black Sheep has already had the status of a territory lord. Otherwise, why would the Zerg Queen treat him so much and value him so highly? Now, Jia Yan has reached this point, and it has to be said that the world is quite optimistic about him, allowing him to go smoothly, to the point where he can really knock on the door of the domain master. Returning to his room, Jia Yan used his brainwave power to seal himself in the room. Under this situation, even if the King of Heaven came, he would not care about it, because it was a major promotion matter. He came to the North Star and is to be promoted to Territory Lord. As for the levels after Territory Lord, it is not something he will care about for the time being. So at the moment, he is going through the most important critical moment in history. How can he care about the power of the Master? Soldier training. Fortunately, People outside were very understanding of Jia Yan's condition. The next day, Jia Yan didn't do anything, and no one came to trouble him. On the other hand, those soldiers from Jia Yan's unit, 1 or 2, were like a chicken blood on this day. They didn't know what Jia Yan was doing, but one by two, they all watched the video of yesterday's battle. This is the biggest publicity for Jia Yan's troops. These soldiers have been practicing for several days. Even though they are sure of the power of Jia Yan's joint tactics, they still have no bottom line. After all, there is no lesson learned from the past. But now it's different. The troops from the Yukia region, who had also been trained by Jia Yan for a period of time, went to the front line and relied on only 2,000 people. They were the battle domain masters and had turned the battle around. This performance was like telling them, these soldiers can also do the same thing. Text download address. Phone reading. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2326. Although according to the final statistics, the casualties of Jia Yan's troops seemed a bit high, unlike the grassland troops, when they were personally commanded by Jia Yan, although the victory would not be so clean and tidy, the casualties would not be large. But it was enough. To be able to win, or to win such a big victory, for them, it had affirmed the ability of Jia Yan's troops, and it also affirmed their future. Therefore, the motivation of the soldiers has completely increased. Even if Jia Yan is not around, for them, they are still training with all their strength. Jia Yan's retreat this time was a bit long. He closed himself in the room and kept thinking about the way of the territory lord. My road to becoming a territory lord is said to have become a territory lord, but now, I still don't know what it means. I seem to have understood something, but I also seem to have understood nothing. What exactly is it? Territory lord. Domain lord, as the name suggests, in ancient times and in the edge areas of the Milky Way, it meant the lord of a domain. Nowadays, the name of territory lord is more of a sign of strength and status. In fact, the original definition of territory lord means the master of a large starry sky area. A person who can control the main force of a domain is called a domain lord. But now, the meaning of territory lord is different again. Promotion at this level has become very difficult to figure out the boundaries and difficult to imagine. A territory lord himself can't even figure out what territory lord is. What kind of meaning is it? It's not that the territory lord has become more mysterious, but that after reaching this realm, no matter what kind of cultivation path you take, there will be an extremely obvious biological barrier. Even if you are those who practice the universal Dao, even if you practice the subspace path, even if you practice my yin-yang Dao, or something else, there will always be such a biological barrier, and then it breaks through, and you will be the territory lord, and often, the methods of breakthrough are also relatively complex and changeable. The levels are there, but in fact everyone has their own breakthrough insights and methods. Jia Yan knew that the domain lord had evolved from the original position of being the lord of a domain to now, which meant that his realm had been sublimated. The existence that breaks through a certain biological barrier is the domain master. However, breaking through the biological barrier is a breakthrough at every level. I really don't understand. What's different about the territory lord, is this thread. Jia Yan's compound eyes were blurry. He stretched out his eyes silently, wanting to touch them. There seemed to be lines in front of him that were both visible and invisible. But he didn't touch this line at all and went straight through it. When Jia Yan's eyes focused, he realized that the line didn't exist at all. Well, in short, it must be related to it. I want to study it carefully. They all say that the breakthrough may take a while, even 100 years. I don't want to wait another 100 years. Not long after, energy fluctuations were faintly leaking out of the entire Jia Yan lounge. Although Jia Yan is in retreat, this retreat cannot last forever. Within 3 days, he was released again. And those territory lords, one or two, when they saw Jia Yan again, it was as if they were seeing a creature of their own generation. Even after Jia Yan came out of seclusion, his whole body looked like an ordinary mid-level peak of the galaxy. Biology, but everyone knows that Jia Yan has experienced the region lord phase. In fact, his potential, as well as the level of strength he can reach in the future, are no longer the average mid-level peak of the galaxy. Even ordinary domain lords treat Jia Yan as if they are a bit complementary. Because he is a fighting type mid-level peak of the galaxy. If nothing happens, if he is promoted to territory lord, he will become a territory lord with extremely terrifying combat power. Although there is a slight chance that he will become an ordinary territory lord due to attribute problems. But no matter what, they will not be weaker than them, so every weak domain owner can't help but bring a hint of compliment when talking to Jia Yan. Ha ha ha, Jia Yan, you are finally out of seclusion. We were still worried that you would continue to be in seclusion. Should we wake you up? Look, the nearby troops are about to gather and are waiting for you to come and train. Senior, I am naturally not one to go back on my word. I will quit when I say I will. Jia Yan smiled and greeted Pangolin and several other senior territory lords. Although it seems that the relationship between the two parties has become slightly estranged since they learned that the other party had accepted the task of guarding Jia Yan, it can still be seen from every bit of their interactions that they belong to be more sincere. The seniors' high opinion of Jia Yan is not just a show, but they really have expectations for Jia Yan. So at this moment, Jia Yan still has a very good personal relationship with these three seniors. Everyone, listen to my order and start training. Jia Yanbu walked towards his newly trained troops and suddenly issued an order. The success of Jia Yan's troops, as well as Jia Yan himself, have recently triggered the region lord. The future domain master plan is like a tornado, which has swept through a large number of the master's areas of influence very quickly. If in the past, the reputation of Jia Yan's troops was just a curiosity and a kind of future potential, then the first batch team of Jia Yan's troops actually carried the enemy including a domain lord on the battlefield. After the army established extraordinary achievements, the reputation of Jia Yan's army was no longer limited to its potential. They have become the backbone of the entire master's power, and the key is that the cost is extremely low. The key figure in the creation of Jia Yan's force, that is, Jia Yan himself, was actually reported at the same moment that he was the peak of the intermediate galaxy, and the peak of the combat intermediate galaxy. During the critical period, Yun brewed the appearance of the territory lord, that is, the future territory lord. This matter is like a powder keg being ignited. The whole situation has almost attracted the attention of the major territory lords in the surrounding area, as well as various units, companies, celebrities, and high-level people. They were all shocked. Jia Yan, who is at the peak of the middle level of the galaxy, even if he creates Jia Yan's troops, he cannot become a domain master, that is, he is in existence on another level. No matter how hard he struggles, he cannot climb to the top of the master's power. But when it is possible for him to be promoted to territory lord, and a closer look reveals that Jia Yan was actually a nearly invincible combat type at the peak of the intermediate galaxy, then his combat effectiveness after being promoted to territory lord may be quite worth the wait. Then this Jia Yan will definitely no longer be regarded as just a chess piece. Not only has his own strength, but also has the master's power. He has to rely on his Jia Yan troop training method, and it is an exclusive training method, because no one can surpass Jia Yan on the yin and yang road, so Jia Yan's his status will definitely skyrocket in the future. If there are no mistakes in the process of being promoted to territory lord, and he is directly promoted to territory lord, then it is very likely that within the entire master's force, a great villain will be born, take charge of one side, and become an important minister within the master's family. It is even possible that he will pose a certain threat to the master's family itself. Everyone began to pay close attention to Jia Yan, the upstart who would inevitably rise as long as he survived. The training of the new large force was much smoother than more people expected. Jia Yan had already told others that he could train an army of 5,000 people. This was not bragging, but because he had already been sure of it. This time, although the number of troops gathered actually exceeded 10,000, Jia Yan was still cautious and divided them into two troops for training separately. Moreover, with this training method, for Jia Yan, there were still two troops. The contrast of confrontation and mutual encouragement can be regarded as improving efficiency, and he does not find it troublesome. If the original 2,000 troops were turned into 10,000 troops from the beginning, he himself would not believe that he had such abilities, let alone others. Yin Yang Dao has experience in large armies, but they are only large armies with lower levels. For example, the soldiers in the Orion arm, most of the strongest are no more than the venerable level, and in this North Star, the venerable level is just a handyman. Soldier. Very good, the Red Army won. The Blue Army will go back and think about why they lost. Let's break up. A cold voice sounded calmly in front of 10,000 troops. After that, the two troops divided into two camps and left the training ground in a mighty manner. The scene was extremely spectacular. You know, there are quite a few galaxy-level experts here, but under the command of the owner of the cold voice, they don't even dare to move at all, and they are meticulous. In the past, with so many galaxy-level people present and so many, the owner of the cold voice, that is, Jia Yan, might not be able to suppress it. But it was different today, because he realized the region lord's appearance, that is, the domain lord is in sight, and ordinary galaxy-level people would not dare to show any resistance to Jia Yan's eyes at all. This is already half a month after Jia Yan started training large forces on a large scale. As the army became larger, the training difficulty also increased geometrically, so Jia Yan began a long training. The effect is also extremely astonishing. The battle sequence of 25,000 man phalanxes, which were originally not promising, is now gradually taking shape. Of course, with such a large force, there are more changes, and the direction of training has become more complex and changeable, making it more difficult to train. Therefore, it would actually take more than a month and a half to train such a 5,000 man army. This allows Jia Yan to stay in one place longer and the risk becomes lower. Even so, no one thinks that Jia Yan's efficiency has become lower. Because he trained an army of 10,000 people in one go, which was equivalent to the amount that could be trained in at least 2 or 3 months in the past. And in terms of quality, is it possible to compare a 2,000-man army with a 5,000-man Jia Yan army that can be used like arms? Let's put it this way, a 2,000-strong Jia Yan force, according to private rumors, can at most act as a surprise force on an ordinary battlefield. But everyone who had seen Jia Yan's 5,000-man army, whether they were soldiers or domain lords, were shocked. They said that this kind of army, given 5,000 men, would dare to punch through the enemy's 20,000-man army. If the enemy does not have a territory lord, 5,000 people can casually eat up an army of 20,000 people. Even if there is a territory lord, one territory lord cannot support the army. In the end, there will still be no change in the outcome at all. Only the 20,000 troops coordinated by the territory lord could withstand the charge of such a 5,000-strong Jia Yan troops. This is completely different from Jia Yan's 2,000-man army, and it has the effect of a needle that calms the sea. So no one is questioning Jia Yan, but there are a large number of masters and forces in all aspects, waiting for the output of this Jia Yan army. In the future, we will take a closer look at whether the scale of this 5,000-man army is really as large as this. Everyone said it was so great. Jia Yan, haven't you determined the commanders of these two troops yet? Yes, it's too difficult. My original intention was to define someone within the army and designate someone who is stronger and more adaptable to my yin and yang dao to be the peak mid-level star to become the commander-in-chief. But now I look at it, at least these two in this army, no middle-level peak of the galaxy is qualified for this matter. After all, the gap between 5,000 and 2,000 is too big. With 3,000 more people, it is at least 10 times the amount of information processing, or even it's more than that. It's simply impossible for an ordinary mid-level galaxy peak to do this. When Jia Yan got off the training ground, he was surrounded by 3 pangolin guards. They have adapted to their status very well, especially when they saw that Jia Yan's newly trained 5,000 strong Jia Yan troop had an aura that even ordinary domain lords could not stop. This made their group of domain lords, when treating Jia Yan, his identity and status were placed even lower. Jia Yan, how about, you try to become a commander with the territory lord? The pangolin creature was suspicious, then looked at the other 2 domain masters, and seemed to have made a decision. Huh, Jia Yan condensed, then looked at the 3 senior territory lords, and then felt a little curious in his heart. Why, can't the 3 seniors of Shiyuan want to try it? Don't forget, if I want to command my yin and yang dao, I have to modify my yin and yang dao, which is related to future promotion and strength. Jia Yan saw the intentions of the 3 of them and looked very strange. It is impossible for a domain master to make such a huge decision easily. Jia Yan, I have been with you for so many days, and I have seen you train such a large number of Jia Yan's troops, and even a lot of galaxy-level beings. We have modified your yin and yang dao, and we have done this to you. Now that we have a lot of understanding of the road, we feel that there is still a possibility. The pangolin creature seems to be very sincere. Yes, of course the most important point is that you have developed the appearance of a territory lord. In other words, your yin and yang dao is theoretically something that a territory lord can practice. As for whether it can make you take a step forward in strength, we have no idea. If we don't care so much, it's unlikely that we can take a step forward. It's better to command such a force. Maybe we will be equivalent to more than doubling our strength on the battlefield in the future. The Black Bear Territory Lord also spoke out. Text download address. Phone reading.